All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Launchpad Podcast. It is your host, Gabriel Hardy, and in this episode today, I interviewed my friend Courtney from Hummingbird Church. And the Hummingbird Church is a religiously protected and entheogenic based church here in the United States. They have these groups and ceremonies all across the country where they fly in indigenous healers and they do ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is their main chosen sort of sacrament, and they create a matrix around that for people and try and make it accessible to as many people as possible through scholarships and things like that. Courtney's great. There's a lot of these psychedelic churches and entheogenic churches that have cropped up over the years. I reached out to her because her seemed particularly interesting to me for a lot of reasons. But also, just throughout this episode, it was really cool because she gave a lot of good insight to this sort of whole market or spectrum that is entheogenic or psychedelic churches. And if you're somebody who has an interest in wanting to understand this market or industry a little bit more, and or you're wanting to participate, maybe open up a psychedelic church within your own community, this is probably a good piece of content for you to watch. She cuts through a lot of the bullshit, cuts through a lot of the fat. So yeah, Courtney's great. If you haven't, you should go check out her stuff. Go check out the Hummingbird Church. That will be down in the description, show notes below. And if you would also give this show, The Launchpad, a like, a subscribe, hit the subscribe button. What else is there that I'm supposed to tell you? Give me a 5-star rating, please. Let me know your social security number in the I'm just joking. Support the show. I'd really appreciating it. I would really appreciate it. This YouTube channel and my podcast is actually starting to grow, which is really, really cool. It's from the beginning been a kind of personal pet project, this little piece of art thing, and it's evolved into this really, really cool endeavor where I get to talk to a lot of interesting people and have this really interesting network. So I'm very grateful for anybody who watches my stuff and supports me. Thank you.
Yeah, hi. My name is Courtney Close. I am the founder of Hummingbird Church. We are a religious organization that brings ayahuasca to the general public and serves in America. Our ceremonies are predominantly indigenous led. We go and meet tribes in the Amazon and form relationships with them here and bring them to the United States so that people can have the experience of sitting with an indigenous medicine carrier in the convenience and safety of the United States.
Awesome. And so I don't know if I'd made this clear enough to you in my outreach to you guys, setting up this interview, but a big part of the incentive of wanting to do this interview is because I wanted to kind of get to know you guys better. I thought it'd be an interesting interview for myself and for the audience and things like that. But I'm also, just as a sort of personal project of mine, both for the YouTube channel and for myself to kind of understand this better, there's this really interesting new giant, I don't know if market is exactly the perfect word for it, but the market of some kind forming and has been forming in the United States for the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years. There's a lot of these new sort of sacramental and theogenic psychedelic churches and things like that starting to crop up. And I find it to be a really, really interesting phenomenon and a really interesting expression of the collective right now and sort of where we're at, right? So yeah, can you just kind of speak on that a little bit and your journey of so were you always sort of protected by law? How did you get protected by law? What did all that look like for you in your journey?
Yeah, so I started with I've used psychedelics since I was 12 years old, but not ever for healing, until I had an experience with mushrooms after having my daughter. I had pretty bad postpartum, and someone suggested taking psilocybin. I thought that was a joke, but I was like, well, I'm down to do it again, and actually found that it was really healing. But I had never in the 20 something years of experiencing psychedelics really got any healing out of it, but I don't think I was like searching for it or necessarily really needing it because I was, at a young age and I was having fun. And then doing them as an adult, I realized, dude, it's no bueno on the fun zone. And it started bringing up, stuff that I need to look at and work on. And that eventually led me to ayahuasca, because I'd had that experience with mushrooms that was not, guided or ceremonial or anything, but it was, myself and the mushrooms and really taking a look in the mirror. And I went all over South America and the United States the first year that I experienced ayahuasca. I probably sat in 40 something ceremonies. Um, and then I met an indigenous medicine man from Colombia. And he had asked me if I wanted to, organize some ceremonies for him out in Joshua Tree in Southern California. And so we were doing those for a couple of years and it was all underground. Like we were getting kicked out of every Airbnb in Joshua Tree. Like when someone would see the security tapes and like, why are you guys throwing up in buckets? Or, you know,
Oh yeah,
why is
yeah.
there, why is
Why are
there
y'all all sitting in a circle, pouring each other's cups?
Yeah, why is there a dude with feathers and a tooth necklace? Just I can't even imagine as an Airbnb owner like how odd and disturbing that must have looked. Why did you guys go through 500 rolls of toilet paper? Um,
So on top of like this, like running around getting kicked of Airbnbs, I imagine there was also, I don't know, but there was also probably the stress of the sort of like legal
oh God, yeah.
dangers, and then I imagine too like all of the stress and paranoia around that probably. And you probably did your earnest attempt to like mitigate this, but it probably played out somewhat into like the experiences and ceremonies and things like that. That
Oh,
like level of
absolutely. And that was why, like, after 2 years that I was like, I can't do this shit anymore, dude. Because my
hmm
energy went, instead of like creating, like a really safe container for people to have this experience, it exponentially went towards like worrying about law enforcement, Airbnb owners. People would freak out. They get really paranoid in their experience and start, oh my God, the cops. Or if they got pissed at you because they were having, an experience where they weren't liking what they were seeing within and inverted that and projected it, it would be like, I'm going to call the cops. Like, and so a lot of those situations kept playing out over and over again because of that energy, or
yeah.
like somebody's like peeking out the blinds the whole time during ceremony and being on watch. And it literally like the thing that liberated us from that was our worst nightmare coming true, which was like having law enforcement show up to a ceremony. And they went fucking big, dude. Helicopters,
What the? Are you
county
serious?
SWAT,
Helicopters
ambulance,
for the
like,
ayahuasca circle?
yeah, like 10 cop cars. And we were out in Joshua Tree doing it, totally underground at some poor unsuspecting Airbnb owner's place. And there was a woman who was having a really hard ceremony, and she was outside, and like we were out in the desert, probably on like a 10-acre property, but surrounded by like other 10-acre properties, and like things echo in the desert and noise carries, and she was outside screaming. And again, this wasn't like we didn't have any there was like I didn't even know what integration was. There was no talk of it. There was no integration. There was no like real preparation other than like don't eat this. No real guidance on like what's going to happen to you after ceremony, how to get through ceremony. It was just show up to an Airbnb, bring your money, pay the shaman, and drink ayahuasca and leave. And
Mhm.
um and there were no facilitators. It was just the shaman. It was like just, the Taita from Colombia that was there. So this girl's outside and she's screaming. And it was the kind of screams that like, if you heard it and didn't call the cops, you're a monster. Like
Yeah.
it was like just visceral, primal screams. So he eventually goes out, gets her and throws her over his shoulder and carries her back in. And he gets her calmed down. But by that point, people had already called the police, but didn't know where the noise was coming from. So I was on the medicine. He decided to put me like on the medicine that night. I think I was 2 cups in, and something was just like, get up. And I stood up, and um I saw this bright light coming down this dirt road and shining it all around like a searchlight. And then we had these big bay windows in the Airbnb, and there was a couch underneath it, and then a couch on the wall behind it. And it just, they shined it into the window, and it was blinding. But, oh, and we had the door open, like cracked a little bit because we were burning a bunch of copal. So, from the perspective of the officer, he sees a shit ton of cars, no lights on in the house, a door open with smoke coming out. And then when he looked, like there was a window seal for the couch underneath it, and he saw like hands, like kind of in the window seal. And then he saw 2 people passed out on the couch that was on the other side. And then with the door open, he was able to see feet of someone laying on the floor. So he thought that it was just like a gnarly homicide. And so he stopped at the end of the road and like didn't go up into the driveway of the house we were at. And like maybe 5 minutes went by, and I was like, oh God, this isn't good, dude. He's calling for backup. And I was like, do I go down there and talk to him? I'm on the medicine, and I'm like, and most of the participants have no idea what's going on. Like, cause it was a really, really deep ceremony. And then, I went to the bathroom to like splash water on my face and pull it together. And, my buddy knocks on the bathroom door, and he's like, hey, Courtney, there's a helicopter, and it's like lighting the whole house up. And I was like, oh shit. So we had this other medicine carrier. Coincidentally, like we also learned don't ever serve bufo and ayahuasca together. And we had a medicine carrier from Mexico that served bufo. And this dude just laced up his shoes, grabbed the ayahuasca, and ran into the desert. And we're like, all right. Like, okay. And so I went to the Taita, the indigenous medicine carrier serving the medicine, and I said, I'm gonna go talk to the police. And he said, don't worry, everything's perfect. Like, the fuck it is. And so I just went out there like this. I was like, just going towards the light, like seeing mandalas and all this different stuff, and like just trying to ground myself, like, okay, keep your shit together, like. And I was like, we're okay, we're okay, we're okay. And I got to the gate, and like when I started walking out of the house, I just see a line of like cars just drew with the lights on. And I was like, fuck. And then the helicopter, like you can't hear anything, and like the cops are yelling, the helicopter's going, I've got the searchlight on me there, I'm walking towards their lights, and I'm on ayahuasca. And I was like, this is fucking intense. And so I get there, and I just like, I don't remember if I don't think I got on the ground or anything. I think I was just like hands up. And then 2 officers approached me, and they said, is everything okay? And I said, dude, nobody's hurt, nobody's injured, everything's fine. We're doing a healing retreat, and we did some primal scream therapy, and I know somebody was screaming really loud, and I'm like, I'm not gonna say it looks normal in there, like it's a fucking mess. There's people throwing up, but we have a shaman in there, and it's fine. And so they were like, okay, well, we got to go in. And they started calling off, the vehicles and stuff were leaving, like they came and turned around and left, and then the helicopter backed off. And so we walk up to the house, and there's the Taita like in full regalia, but for some reason he had like taken off his feather crown and put a Minnesota Twins baseball cap on, and it just made like the whole thing like fucking weirder. And so as I'm walking up like this long driveway with these 2 officers, they're telling me what happened. He's like, it was one of the officers with me was like one that was using the searchlight. He's like, people were calling saying they were screaming of a woman being attacked. and they didn't know exactly where it was coming from, but I just had like the road that the houses were on. So I was out here looking. And then when I saw this and I saw feet on the floor, I saw smoke coming out, no lights on, and I saw what looked like unconscious bodies, in that house, I thought, okay, this is likely where the incident occurred. And then I'm telling him, oh no, we're with a shaman. I didn't say ayahuasca or anything. I was like, we're with a shaman from the Amazon. People have PTSD. We're doing a cleanse right now. People are throwing up. So they walk and they're like, we need to talk to the girl that was screaming to like make sure she's okay. And so we walk up and the Taita was there. They were like, that was when the fires were like going on in the Amazon. And they were like, oh, you're from the Amazon? And he's like, yes. And like, oh, we're sorry, it's on fire. He's like, thank you. And then they were like cool about things. They walked in the house, which was like a complete shit show of like probably 20 people just throwing up, unconscious, going through it. And the girl was wrapped in a blanket on the couch. And I said, here she is. And then she was like, I'm sorry. It was me. I'm okay. And they were like, okay, well, everything looks good. I was like, fuck, it does. All right. And they said, just, keep the noise down. You guys are going to be doing that. I hear you can't be scaring people or, creating a nuisance and, keep it safe. And we were like, all right. And they left. And then we were the Taita and I were sitting there like, oh shit. Like, okay, well, let's go back to the ceremony. And then probably 30 minutes later, the Bufo shaman who ran off with the ayahuasca came back out of wherever he was, dude, like whatever rock he was hiding under with the medicine. And we continued the ceremony. And most of the participants had no idea like what had happened. And so after that, for me, was really like the wake up call of like, I felt like the message for me in that was like, we had created a retreat that included Bufo and Cambo and Chonga because that's what people in LA were asking for. And I really didn't know much about not combining these medicines at the time. And the medicine man, he was just straight from Colombia. And he's like, oh, people said they like this, like he didn't know really anything about any of them. So we did this retreat, and that was the retreat that the police came. And that was before we served any of the other medicines. But I just really felt like that was a sign that like you don't have your divine protection when you're doing stupid shit like that. And then also after doing 4 ayahuasca ceremonies and smoking Bufo for the first time, I was like, no, dude, this was no good. And then also, saying, okay, what do we have to do to like not worry about this situation? Like, what are our legal rights? Because at that point I was done. I was like, I'm either completely done with this or I want to do it legally, like, or not. Legally is kind of like a questionable thing because it's still not legally, but I want to do this with the most protection and integrity like that I possibly can, and form a church. And then it was just pretty like after that, just things lined up. We met an attorney that gave us advice, and we found somebody offered their spot in Cherry Valley, California, which is like maybe half a mile from where I live. And we were able to, form the church, but it was very hairy, doing it underground because you are so stressed. And when you're not being forthright with the Airbnb owners, and when you're, so worried about what's going to happen if law enforcement comes, are they gonna are they gonna arrest everybody, like, and they're on the medicine and now they're all screwed up because they got thrown in a holding cell on ayahuasca, like, are they gonna get in trouble? Are you gonna get in trouble? Like, so we actually talked to law enforcement as well, and there were the different law enforcement agencies that we spoke with when we were getting ready to form the church were like, this isn't something for us, but you can't do things like go into a neighborhood and do unpermitted parking or break the curfew, like the noise curfew, and you can't have like naked people running through the streets. And And if we're having to constantly send out ambulances or law enforcement to look into things, it's going to be a problem for us, and we're going to want to do something to stop this, because you're creating a problem now for the area that you're in. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so we felt, also being when we were stationed in Cherry Valley, like before we were really roaming around too much, we let law enforcement know ahead of time we're doing an ayahuasca ceremony. Sometimes people scream and there's noises. Here's a phone number, you can get a hold of us. Here's the exact address that we're at, so that you're not looking around trying to figure out, what's going on or where we're at, so that you can, get a hold of us if there is a complaint or a concern from a neighbor. Um, so once we did that, it just that shift in energy and being able to um, focus on the quality of the ceremony, the comfort of the ceremony. Now that we're doing this frequently, regularly in a solid spot, like how can we make it better? So it was a huge shift. I wouldn't recommend, the other thing too, for people that uh, you go to have this, there's a really big divide in this community of like people that have been doing this for a long time, like the Dimes and the UDV, um, who've been doing this underground and quietly for a long time, really want to keep it that way, because they feel like now this rise of these entheogenic churches and these people doing this and having websites and social media are fucking things up. Like they're like, we did this for 30 years with no problem, and now you guys are coming along and doing this, and it's creating waves and making more awareness of it. But the thing is, when you go underground and there's not even a name for the group, there's no social media, there's no posting on safe ceremonies, there's no website, there's no Google business. Who are you going to tell if something goes wrong or if you have a bad experience? Like, no one knows who you're talking about. And so really, like, the safety of the participant, I think going to these public groups is way better, because I've sat in some shady underground ceremonies, um and with some like definite creepers,
Mm-hmm.
and people that didn't know what they were doing, were like a sociopath that got some psychedelics, and a spiritual ego that told them that they were a shaman or something with no fucking training or experience. And so it really, like, for us, it put more eyes on things. It made us hold things in higher regard. If people don't like their experience, they can go on Reddit and talk shit. They can go leave a review. They have an outlet where they can be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that, even good, bad, whatever feedback that we get, it's still beneficial to hear like somebody's feedback and experience, and to open up the debate on things, as and so I definitely, like, so many things that we didn't really think about changed when we went public. Like, we had we just had it was a lot, and I did not expect the amount of energy that came. Like, I thought, oh, we're gonna create a little website. I had like converted my personal Instagram to an Instagram for the church, and I thought, oh, maybe we'll do this like a couple times a year, get like 25 people. And then within like 2 weeks of posting the first ceremony, I had 45 people signed up. And so I really underestimated the demand and interest for these ceremonies. Um, my intent with public was to shift that, focus from, oh my God, the cops and what are we going to do, to being informed and also getting people to the medicine that really needed it. And that was, it was the same people kind of being recycled over the last 2 years in this little tight knit community when we were doing it underground. But
Mm.
I knew people that had addiction issues, depression issues, suicidal ideation, people that couldn't stay out of prison. Like, I was like, this would be, I think, a really great tool for them, but they'll never get the invite, And we weren't
Mm-hmm.
screening anybody. It was just basically like, hey, if you have these conditions, don't come. and don't eat this before ceremony and don't be on these medications. And that was it. So going public, really allowed us to get it to a more diverse group of people, to really learn and understand like the screening and the waivers and different things for protection. And then also with more people, like create more of a retreat experience. And then, at that point, integration had people just started really mainstream talking about, integration and what happens after ceremony. So it really took us to the next level, but it was a lot of energy and it was a lot of demand. And then after that first ceremony or that first retreat that we did, filling it in 2 weeks, I didn't know what's the right number of participants. Do we throw 100 people in a ceremony? I don't fucking know. Do we keep it at 20? Because to me, I had gone to Colombia where you're in these big 100-person ceremonies, and I'd been in ones where you're in a 5-person ceremony. And to me personally, it didn't matter. I'm going to go into my process. So I didn't know. We literally just fit as many people as we possibly could into a room because of the demand and the mission of like trying to get this to people. And then it was like, when's the next one? When's the next one? And I just was completely overwhelmed with requests from people, wanting to sit in ceremony. And I'm also, working full time and being a single parent and trying to deal with like all this. And I wasn't prepared. And so we started opening more ceremonies and more ceremonies and more ceremonies. And I think that first year we ended up doing like, I think probably around 20 weekend retreats. And that was everything was trial by fire, trial and error. I didn't know, I was a VP at a bank. Like I didn't know really a lot about ayahuasca at that point. I'd sat in a lot of ceremonies, but it's not like I was ever trained on anything or knew the deep psycho spiritual process that people were going to be going through. I wasn't somebody that was like, oh, I'm going to get into healing and I'm an integration coach and, trauma informed. I wasn't shit. I was like a fucking cokehead that got off of drugs and over a lot of my depression issues with entheogens and primarily with ayahuasca and working with indigenous communities. That was it. And so when these problems and these things and these attacks and, people saying like, you're demonic, you're going to hell, you guys have this dark energy, you made me have a bad experience, this is evil, you guys are doing it wrong. I sat with this other group and they're doing it right and you're doing it wrong. And then people going on Reddit being like, talking shit, like, you're money grubbing, you're in this for the money. And I'm like, the fuck I am. I'm $40,000 in debt trying to do this shit. And like, and all that energy coming at me, like the consequences of it were severe to my health. I gained 100 pounds and like, I just became like traumatized from doing these ceremonies and dealing with people that had like really severe problems that I was not equipped to deal with. I'm not a therapist. I'm not, I'm not a healer. I'm not an ayahuasquero. I'm a fucking vice president at a bank at this time. So it was like really overwhelming. And I wanted to burn it to the ground. I was like, I'm about to be fucking Catholic again, dude. And these people, this shit's scaring me back to Jesus. Like, I'm done. This is way too much. And
scaring you back to Jesus.
That's dude, I was ready. I was ready to go on the circuit. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna get so many Christian speaking gigs.
About you're an ex plant medicine practitioner. Mm-hmm. Now you came back to Christianity. That you would be their spokesperson.
Oh my God, dude, it'd be so hot.
That's fun. This is really, there's so much here that you've said. It's really juicy. So like we've just said a minute ago, though, I really appreciate about like, this honesty. Like I wasn't a healer. I wasn't the shaman. I wasn't it was just like you were trying earnestly, honestly, to create this vehicle for others using your own skill set and own set of life experiences and things like that have pushed you along this path. And there is this giant kind of like beacon put on you because of that, being in that position. And I feel like this is an interesting subject of all this topic, like part of all of this that I think anybody getting into this is probably going to face the
Mhm.
money aspect, right? It's like,
Yeah.
it's this fine line, right? Because, like, I mean, uh, there's obviously like the trope of like the Christian megachurch guys who have, 4 Ferraris, right? You don't want to be the equivalent of that plant medicine
Yeah.
world, right? But also this idea that, like, I mean, unless you truly have just like the resources already under your belt, and you want to sacrifice those of your own accord, like, unless there is that, which most people aren't going to have with the amount of money that this sort of thing takes, right? Like, it is going to need to be a vehicle, like a quote unquote business of sorts, and generate money. And if, like, that can be done I think that can be done, like, in this vein of sacred reciprocity, right? Like, even
Yeah.
within the capitalistic market, like, I think, and that's part of the
It,
reason why I wanted to talk. There's a lot of reasons I wanted to talk to you today, but that was a big part of it too. Is like, hey, you're within this interesting space that I've, like, been an observer of and a participant of for a while now. This psychedelic capitalistic
mhm.
space, right? It's interesting.
It the first year that I did this, we did 3 ceremonies, 3 ayahuasca ceremonies, your food, your mat, your stay, activities, everything included for $675. Finished that year off $32,000 in the fucking hole. And
Some hotels, like here in rural Kentucky, are more expensive for a 3-day stay. Some
yeah,
hotels.
and
Yeah.
that was paying the medicine carrier $450 of that went directly to the person serving ayahuasca.
Yeah.
So that left me at like $225 to pay for everything, to pay for the location, the porta potties, the food. And like, I don't have just like a team of slave volunteers, which is another thing that people need to talk a little bit more about, is the exploitation of the workforce in this. You've got this thing that people are willing to pay a lot of money for. Like right now, our ceremonies are around $1,100, and that's kicking it down to 25 people, paying for usually $5,000 to $8,000 for a location for the weekend, paying the medicine carrier who's coming up from South America, paying taxes to the state of California, which are 5%, paying 3% on credit card transaction fees, and paying staff members. Like, there's not, we're at the lowest point to break even. And that's where, and be able to give people ceremonies for free. We have typically about 5 people on ceremony. Well, we have 2 spots that are totally free every retreat. And then we have 2 to 5, depending on the group size and location, that are at cost. Like, that's the medicine carrier cost, the taxes, and the credit card fee, and just the cost for the location if it's a per person. So we're really at that point, like, of breaking even. And it's still a scary spot. I had a medicine carrier that got sent away and deported in February of this year. And so I had already paid them. I'd paid to fly them up to the Amazon, or from the Amazon, and also had 2 weekends of 30 people that were coming to drink the medicine that I had to inform and offer refunds to, find a replacement, pay that replacement. And I ended up losing about $28,000 on that. And so for me, that was like a big thing of like, my God, you need to run it a little more like a business, because I end up pulling that money out of my own money, to cover it. And I don't have the balance for it yet. I'm still in this spot of like, this is really hard work, and it's really risky work as well. And it's not something that I'm willing to do for money, but it's also not something I'm willing to do for free, because it's
Mm-hmm.
so much work. It's so much energy. And I think a lot of people in the, spiritual or healing community go from this, like, these extremes of like, where you're talking about like prosperity gospel, I should be getting the money, this is abundance, and blah, 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 blah. And you see people going fucking nuts in this community too. Like,
Yeah.
And then to where, oh, I'm doing this sincerely, I shouldn't charge. Every healing should be free. Real healers don't charge. That's bullshit too. Everybody should get paid for anything they do. If you're putting work in, you don't have to take a vow of poverty. Like, I'm just gonna help all these people that I
Mm.
didn't make sick, and I'm gonna put up with all their shit, and I'm gonna heal them for free. Like, people think that you should just get healed for free. It's like, no. When you went out and you bought the drugs, you bought the coke, you fucked yourself up, you paid for all that stuff happily, but then you expect somebody to come fix your ass for free. Like, that's
Mhm.
not
And
realistic
if
either.
and if you are able to provide it for free, here and there to say maybe people who aren't, but like that's great. And like if you want to
Hmm.
do that, but like just kind of like I described earlier, logistically, you know, like unless you simultaneously have all those resources and the desire to spend all those resources specifically on that, then yes, the like it is going to need some sort of like the vehicle is going to need money to operate,
It totally does, and it's like it either has to be like your philanthropic like cause that's like
Hmm.
super risky. Most people don't have like questionably legal and way risky philanthropic causes to like help humanity. And
Yeah.
then, or you're going to need some money to do this, or you're just bringing everybody out to the dirt and saying, show up here. And that's not always, the best either. And there's definitely, I think more people desire an experience that's not just out in a field, somewhere in someone's backyard drinking ayahuasca. But there's just, and it's so hard, and I still, after 8 years, don't have it figured out, because I feel bad, like, if I were to make this my living and make money off of it, but then I also know if I did that, there's so many more, and I put that energy into it, there's so many more people that we could help, and there's so many people we could help for free
Hmm.
by doing that. And there's tons of people that have the means to pay for this. This really is a luxury item, The cost of doing this, you could go buy a Louis Vuitton bag, like,
Hmm.
this is a luxury item, and it shouldn't be. It should be something that and it's still an issue in the US where, or around the world, where the people who need this the most don't have the resources to do it.
Hmm.
They don't, and they may not even be aware of this because it's not in their community, and it's
Hmm.
seen as like weird white people shit. And
Yeah.
there, there's a huge issue there, and I don't know how to bridge that gap. Like, I'm when like go into like impoverished neighborhoods and traumatized neighborhoods and start telling them about ayahuasca, like, it's and then offer free ceremonies, like stand outside the prison when people start getting released and like, hey, do you want to come sit in a ceremony? Like, I don't know a grounded way to really do that. And nor do I financially have the resources to like just give this away for free to all the hundreds of thousands of people that need it. And so
Hmm.
it's like you just come to terms of like kind of only being able to do what you can do. Like, and I have to remind myself, like, I want to help as many people as I can, but I didn't, it's not my responsibility, like, I can't
Hmm.
take that on. All I can do is like the best that I can do.
Yeah.
And um
Does it ever bother you? This is something that just came to my mind as you spoke about this and described this. Does it ever bother you and I guess a certain aspect of this, like always just kind of going with the flow of the universe, like I'm in the place where I need to be, things like that. But, and like you described, you're doing what you can. Does it ever bother you, like you described, the certain sort of demographic of like people who are currently able to sort of like access some of these things? Like you said, I think, and it's not always right. I don't think you have to be necessarily super sick or super impoverished to be
mhm.
deserving of these medicines. I think it can be for the betterment of the well as well too. And I think that
Yeah.
that's our God given right, But like I agree with you. I think a lot of the people who are in dire need are people who struggle to access these things sometimes, and like I think that there's a certain sort of like, and I've seen it within my own community. I live in rural Kentucky, and I've seen in my own community this sort of like poverty trap that
Mhm.
people sort of like get into. um yeah, so how do you feel about that with like your sort of like current business model and things like that?
Um when it when it was just, I mean, it was primarily when we started doing this, white people with resources.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a fucking bummer, dude. Like that, it was like, all right, cool. We're doing retreats for, and not that they didn't need healing. I mean, there were suicidal people, there were people in addictions, there were people that were violent. These people were deserving and needing of healing,
Yeah.
but it wasn't getting to the people. Like there was no diversity in it, just to be frank. And I remember the first time a person of color showed up in ceremony, we were so stoked. Like, wow. We asked him all these questions, like, how did you find it?
Oh.
What made you, like, probably made him real uncomfortable. But it was just like, how do we, and talking to them too about how do we make this so Black people know this is a safe place for them? Because that's something
Mm-hmm.
they worry about. I don't go into places and go like, is this safe for a white 44-year-old woman, of resources to like go into? I don't, but that's a real thing with Black people in America, and
Yeah.
and so we talked to them, and we were able to get more diversity and more facilitators on the team that
Mm.
that were diverse. And
It's
then
interesting you point out the just being your first Black person within ceremony is a big deal, and you guys kind of dug deeper to figure out like or like how do we get more Black people in here and stuff like that. But
yeah,
I had my friend Emily on the podcast, and she's heavily involved in the whole psychedelic scene, and this is something that she was pointing out. She's big in like the Burning Man scene as well too. She was pointing out the statistical like like how low amount of Black people and indigenous people are represented at Burning Man. And
yeah,
it seems like overall, it's just pointing out other statistics as well too of how low that they're represented within the overall sort of psychedelic culture in general. Now, so it doesn't seem like it's maybe necessarily just like your ceremony circle, like albeit like I think it's like a, a good, um, well intentioned like attempt and a good place to start of like digging into that the personal level within your own ceremony, right? But it looks like this might be like a sort of like cultural or some sort of other like bigger sort of trend. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for those communities too, like it is kind of seen as weird white people shit. And then when you
Yeah.
see like these Instagram ads of like these ethereal fairies with jewels on their face dancing around at a wellness festival, like, and you're a person of color where that shit doesn't exist in your community, you're just like, the fuck is that, Like, and a lot of the people, I cuss and I say whatever. I wasn't born with a filter. I don't have the luxury of like being fake and having a filter. Like, I am the way I am. And that's not a representation of how this community is. And it's I get criticized and shit talked to, but I'm like, this is my personality. What do you want me to do about it? Like, this is my authentic self. Um,
I love
and
it. I love it. It's grounding because there's so like you just said, there's so much airy fairiness in
like,
all of this,
woo,
right? It's grounding. I like
yeah,
your personality. It's different. It wasn't what I don't take this wrong way,
yeah.
Courtney, but it wasn't what I necessarily expected. So I'm kind of eating it up.
Yeah, like, and I think, in this community, like when you've got this white girl that went to Peru for a few weeks and can list out 50 medicine carriers of different lineages they sat with or trained with or whatever they did, and they changed their name to some starseed alien angel name or whatever, like, and you're a person of color and you're like, the
Yeah.
fuck, like, I'm gonna go to this person for hardcore problems that this person probably can't even relate to and doesn't understand, and then go into this environment, and of course you're going to feel judged, and so because the representation for this community typically is this namaste, all healed, wearing white, like dancing around with fairy wings, type of like the representation, and not the real nitty gritty, like, this is about healing, this is ugly, this is dirty, this is hard, this is going to hell and coming back, and real, like, I think until we get to that point where there it's represented in a more grounded way and realistic way. And I know that a lot of the clinicians are trying really fucking hard to like back it with the science and show the results and showcase. And the veterans have been huge in this for being like fucking normal people that are coming here and sharing their experiences and their healing, because normal people need this. Like everyday Americans need this, not just the people that go to Burning Man or, or do psychedelics or are into new age stuff. Like this needs to get to everyday Americans. And when you see people that aren't like you, that don't act like you, that are like from a whole nother planet that you can't relate to, why would you want to go there? Why would you? I would be afraid. Fuck, I'm going to end up like them, dude. I don't want to do that. I don't want to change my name. I don't want to be like, you know, and, and so I think that drives people away a lot, and that the clinicians are trying really hard to really give this validity as a healing modality. But then you have the clinical approach where you're like, okay, nobody can fucking afford that. That's insane. Like all these psilocybin practitioners are like $9,000 for my sessions. And I'm not saying it's not worth it, dude, because it's a lot of work. And I'm not a clinician. I don't have like hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans, which these guys do, or medical malpractice insurance or anything. Like, I don't know. But I just know that that model is not accessible. So now you have these pop-up churches, and you have these, I will say, I used to think most of these people were just doing this for financial reasons or because they had some delusion on the medicine that told them to serve. But really, from talking to a lot of people in this community and a lot of people starting, they're well-intended, just as I was. Well-intended, ill-informed, and not having the experience. And so you will be the first victim of that when you're working with these medicines. Your life will be the victim of it. And most people burn out very quickly. It gets real hard. And then the people coming to the ceremonies also like put a lot of trust and faith and assume they're pretty safe, but they may not be, and you've had, deaths in the United States and incidents that have happened, and, it's really unfortunate, but it's the way the laws are and how things are set up, it's created a gray market. And that's what all this is the gray market. Like I could still get arrested for doing this. It's not totally legal, but I would go to court and I would argue my First Amendment right, and and use RFRA as the basis for doing this. But there's no, like, I don't have a stamp that says you're legal, and that we didn't go through the DEA exemption process and refused to because it's unconstitutional. It's fucking bullshit. It's a phantom process that nobody wins. You have the NAC with the peyote. You have the UDV in New Mexico. That's one location, and then you have Jonathan's Santa Daime up in Ashland, Oregon. Those are the three that have it. Oh, and then the Eagle and the Condor now. But I don't have $2 million to sue the federal government to get my right to do this. I believe it's, my First Amendment constitutional right to do it. It's a reason that my ancestors came here and founded America. So I'm not going to run like a little fucking rat to Mexico or Costa Rica for my First Amendment right. I'm going to do it here. I know that this is such a amazing healing that you can get in one weekend when done correctly. And I really believe that it's my right as an American to do it. And that's a huge part of why I'm so public about it. People go, oh, you should, if you do it where it's illegal and you put stuff out there when it's illegal, you're disrespecting the medicine, says every retreat owner in Costa Rica, and it's like, oh, you should go to Costa Rica. Most people can't. And ayahuasca is not from Costa Rica. And I don't know why people think that, like, because there's all these retreat centers, because everybody just went to Rhythmia that had money and then had the means to go open up a retreat center and do this. So it's like, you've all this ayahuasca in Costa Rica, and people going to Costa Rica to experience it because it's also legal in Costa Rica. But if you caught some felonies, you ain't flying to Costa Rica. You couldn't, even if you got the money. Like, you can't leave the country. And that's a lot of the people that come. Like, a lot of Americans get arrested, dude. We arrest more of our own people than anywhere else. And a lot of them can't leave the country. And, so it's just, there's a lot of complexity in this, and there's a lot of, I just things that make it really unappealing to the people that need it. And then also it's very expensive to do. And it's
Yeah.
expensive to these healers need to get paid. This is their life work, and this money goes back to communities to support communities in the Amazon and to further their initiatives. And it takes days for them to get, like, it's a huge effort and people need to get paid. So yeah, you've got the financials and the weirdness and the, people thinking that it's doing drugs too. I think that's a big deterrent for people, is they're like, oh, I'm just doing drugs. And then as Americans, we have the, the AA model and the NA model of, the 12 steps and the sobriety, not realizing like the dude that wrote the book was on acid and wanted LSD to be part of it. And just like this absolute sobriety. But then you can go get like geeked out on all kinds of antidepressants and shit that your doctor gives you,
Yeah.
where you're out of your mind. And it is that absolutely amazing to me how many people are on antidepressants and then are still horribly depressed. But then now they just don't get a boner, dude, or enjoy life.
It's not even just antidepressants. It's
Oh,
antidepressants. It's anti-anxiety.
mhm.
It's amphetamines,
Antipsychotics.
antipsychotics. Yeah, it's really, and I think like so earlier in the podcast I had said that this whole sort of like gray market psychedelic church thing was in interesting expression, and I'm glad that I expression of the collective, and I'm glad that I
Mhm.
use those words because it kind of feels like that's a lot of like what you're describing here about your own personal path and what you've seen within the community as a general, right? Is in general, it's like you described these $9,000 psilocybin facility, treatment or whatever it is, the clinical model in general, that our current system of things, it's not scratching the itch and it's not adequate enough. And so there is this expression of the collective where people kind of like yourself know that's not enough. And there's a lot of people who sort of like, need it right now. And so like within setting up like this psychedelic, this ayahuasca church, your sacramental church, would you say that that was an accessible process for yourself? Was that a hard thing to do? Is that something that is accessible to others? I'm thinking about like the sort of like scalability of this, and if like somebody else is listening to this and also feels called to create a vehicle of their own, um,
I,
yeah.
it is a process that's really easy, but it's super gate kept by people. Like
Mm,
when I started it, I thought that other people that had ayahuasca churches would be just so stoked that we wanted to do the work, and help us. And it just immediately was met with like, you shouldn't be doing this, uh, just not, it wasn't really helpful. Um, and I think that is an issue. And now you've got where people not knowing where to start. And now you've got the attorneys. Like there's so many entheogenic
yeah.
attorneys or plant medicine attorneys. And these guys, a lot of them are fucking assholes too, dude. Like
Yeah.
you're going to charge somebody 10 grand for something that costs 150 fucking bucks because you believe in the work. And I
Mm-hmm.
understand you're an attorney. You probably, again, have hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans and a fucking Mercedes to pay for and all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it, dude. You need to get paid for what you're doing, but don't put it under the guise of like you're doing this because you believe in it, but then you're not giving the safety. You're not really
Mm-hmm.
informing them of their liability because there is no liability protection. You take a risk, but if you don't have shit, you don't have shit to lose. Um, and there's not guidance. And one of the things that myself and another person that I'm really good friends with that has an entheogenic church we've talked about is like, dude, doing low cost like webinars and explaining it or putting the material out there how to do it. But then also like the other side of that is like, well, fuck, of course, like some rapist is gonna, somebody with like bad intentions is also gonna take that information and do it. But then is it a thing where it's like, all I can do is put it out with the intent that I put it out with to help people and to help the movement, and then whatever happens.
Mm-hmm.
But like, where's
Yeah.
the personal responsibility? And like, even if I vetted somebody, what does that mean? And why am I the one to like vet them and make that decision? And of course, I'm not going to see everything. So that's like really where I've been at, where I help. Like if somebody calls me, and I do get like random calls, like, hey, I'm thinking of starting a psilocybin church, or I want to do ayahuasca ceremonies. I'll always have a conversation with them, unless they completely weird me out, like
Yeah.
I'll have a conversation with them. I'll be realistic about what the risk is. I'll tell you the shit the attorney won't tell you, because they're going to just tell you that you absolutely have the right to, and that this isn't a risk, but it is a huge liability risk. It's a financial risk. It's a, I think the risk is relatively low for like getting arrested and thrown in prison, but there's shit you have to worry about with money. These online payment platforms taking your money, going, this is illegal, and then they just take your money and you never get it. You don't know what happens to it. Getting bank
Yeah.
accounts shut down, putting yourself at risk of wire fraud and money laundering. What you need to do with the taxes, which is a whole nother thing. Like the IRS took the fucking mob down. Like there's a lot of these where if the DEA and the Department of Homeland Security Special Investigations and local law enforcement isn't going to get involved, there are lots of other organizations that could stop this just based on the financials of it, and the where you're serving a substance to people that's not FDA cleared. So there is a lot of risk from those other organizations. And I think that's where the heat will come in, because the DEA lost this. The DEA lost the battle on this shit. They never went in court when they go against people for this, because religious freedom and the First Amendment is so protected in this country. And so having the Drug Enforcement Agency or the Department of Homeland Security get involved in it doesn't end well. And so they get involved where there's money and there's wins. They're not going to waste their time on this. And so I think that's what a lot of people fear, is those two organizations, or mostly the DEA. They're not even aware of the Department of Homeland, which are really fucking scary, and they will come to your house and scare the absolute shit out of you. And like, and God bless.
I've had it happen.
Yeah, same Z's, bro. They show up in the
Okay.
fucking package.
So there's a lot here I want to. Okay, so
All right. As like an exercise for the audience and for myself, I'm going to take advantage of this moment, this time with you here right now, and kind of like give you a download on who I am and kind of like what I want to do. And this plays into the incentive structure of like me wanting to have and reaching out to you about having this conversation and stuff as well too. But so something that I've said that I've wanted to do that since I was 18 years old. I'm 25 years old right now, by the way. I've said I wanted to do this when I was 18 years old. Still pretty sure in my heart, that I want to do this. And I get that affirmation from source as well quite often. But I was arrested at 20 years old for drug trafficking, DMT.
Oh shit.
And at the time I was a psychedelic drug dealer. I was selling psilocybin, selling cannabis, selling DMT, but I really didn't sell a lot of DMT. It was very rare that somebody actually wanted to buy DMT from me.
It's niche market there.
Yeah, what ended up happening was I kind of be in my college town. I became like this DMT facilitator, where like a lot of people started coming to my apartment because I was like the psychedelic, the psychedelic drug dealer, and so a lot of people started coming to my apartment to do DMT, and I just made it known to everybody, like, hey, if you're interested, if you want to try it, like, I'll do it with you for free here. And I coined my apartment the Launchpad, which is, by the way, the name of the podcast that you're on, right? The Launchpad podcast. And so, but yeah, I was arrested at 20 for this drug trafficking. I had to do time in prison for it and everything. Did my time, all of that. But I'm getting into a place in my life for a lot of different reasons where I think that I might could bring this to fruition. And something I'm extremely interested in doing is creating my own, like, there's a lot of different of these entheogenic churches, and a lot of them usually choose a certain sort of sacrament, usually some sort of like route of administration involved with that sacrament. And a lot of them kind of have like a bleeding of things and stuff, and but for this church in particular, I want it to be a kind of vehicle for a matrix that specializes in
the vaporization of N,N-dimethyltryptamine, and I want it to be here within my community of small town Kentucky. I want people to have that protection. It's something I'm willing to give up a lot of resources for. In fact, that's really what a lot of like the build up for me for the past few years has kind of been, is getting my life together after getting my house raided and getting charged with drug trafficking, just kind of like bouncing back from that, but also building up my resources and my network and all of that sort of thing, so that I could provide this legal container for my friends, my family, and my community. I could move out to Colorado tomorrow and start doing it, with whatever the sort of law. But like honestly, it's not what I feel called to. I feel called to like make it within Western small town Kentucky.
Yeah.
I really do. And so I've talked to different people. I've even talked to some of the lawyers that you mentioned, that want to charge you 10 grand for this. I've talked to a lot of people about this. I've spoke with this one lady quite a bit who helped me cut through a lot of the fat and point me in a good direction. Um, but yeah, I guess I lay all that out for you because, like, do you have any sort of advice for somebody like me, who might want to do this sort of thing?
Yeah, totally. And you should do
Yeah.
it where you do it in your community. When you go
Mm.
invade someone's Colorado community, where it's not your
Yeah,
people, like
that's
do
right.
it to your community. I'm out here in Beaumont, California in the sticks, dude. We're doing them in Cherry Valley, and we go to different communities that are rural, like where we have the connection because somebody's bringing us there. Um I would say do it to your people, do it to your community. That's how it's going to spread to those people that need it. Not going to those other places where it's safe and legal. Like then you're also a dime a dozen, and it's not getting to the people that desperately needs to. And so I would tell anybody, the first thing is you got to be sincere. That's the law. Like, and you have to be sincere. If you're doing this as like a way to, oh shit, I can make some money, or like, damn, I got a rap sheet longer than my fucking arm, and like this is a job I'm qualified for, like if you're looking at it from an opportunistic approach, like just know that the nothing's on your side. No, like you're
Yeah.
just you're it's not going to work for you no matter what you do. Nothing's on your side, not from a spiritual perspective or a law enforcement or a First Amendment. Like nothing's on your side. So when you really sincerely feel the call for this, it makes you a bit of like a fanatic, and it gives you the balls and the strength to do this. So that's really what you need, is first off that sincerity, that real desire to do it, and it'll start transmuting into strength. And then when you have that, then you can take the steps to protect yourself and protect your participants. NMDMT is like it's so stupid that it's illegal. Like the dumbest shit on earth is that it's illegal. Like, and it is an experience for so many people that can change their perspective on reality. And take I was just telling this story yesterday. I knew this dude that was like this hardcore Satanist. He just hated fucking everything. He was such a dickhead, and he was all into like worshiping the devil and shit. And I was like, bro, come over to my house and smoke some DMT. This was like 10 years ago. I was like, come over to my house, smoke some DMT, and your perspective is going to be changed. And he, 3 hits away from another dimension, it shifted his perspective on reality and God and creation and the nature of the universe just from having that 10-minute experience. And I ran into this guy like a year ago, and he was like, dude, totally unrecognizable. He was just like, thank you for that. Like it just showed me that the world wasn't this dark, oppressive, shitty place where I had to worship the devil to try to make people afraid of me because I was so hurt inside and so scared and felt powerless. That was from one time smoking DMT. And that's so safe. It's so safe to smoke DMT. And like I was like, damn, like that so dude, hats off for doing that, because people, I don't know any DMT churches. I know Bufo, people 5 but 5 that's a fucking hell of a ride. And if you're not ready to deconstruct your reality and build yourself back up, or you have somebody that doesn't know how to safely serve you, you are putting your life at risk. So that goes into the other part of like, once you have the sincerity, then you need to know your safety aspects, and your safety aspects for, you know, physical safety. Like, you don't want to have people smoke DMT and like have them stand outside on the cement, you know, like you want to have them in a safe where their physical body can be kept safe. And so once you have like the physical safety, and then, you know, what am I going to do if there's an emergency? The first thing everybody needs is go get some damn CPR training. This shit's cheap. Go get the basic life support and first aid all through the American Heart Association. Like, go do that. Get a defibrillator. Like, get trained in it. Keep a first aid kit. Like, really, and don't just zoom through CPR. Like, okay, I'm gonna get the certificate. Like, learn it. Learn CPR. Because learn how to get, if somebody starts choking, how to clear their airways. Don't be afraid to call 911, because that's how people fucking die. People die in this community because people are afraid to call 911. Don't be afraid to call 911. If you're afraid to call 911, get the fuck out. Don't do this at all. So get the physical safety stuff. Your sincerity is there. And then the paperwork is so fucking easy. And that's what like people don't want to, you need to have your bylaws and this and that and all this stuff. Dude, you can get templates for it. You can go to our website, copy anything off of there. Just fucking please get Hummingbird Church off of it. Do a find and replace all. Like, you can copy anything that's on our site. I don't give a shit. If you want our bio, you want all that as a template, that's open source code, dude. You can have it. It's out there. So it's not that hard. And don't go pay an attorney all this money to create that. Unless you're like a person of means and you're going to open a fancy retreat center or something. But if you're somebody that's going to be doing this in a rural small town or your town or your city or whatever, don't spend your resources, you know, paying an attorney for something that you can do in a minute, you know. So after that, like, once you have, like, you understand what you're doing, like, you've got to have like what are you doing, what are you trying to explain to people, like, because you have to, if you have to go to court and argue your sincere religious belief on this, you need to know why. So you need to formulate that. You don't need to go write a new Bible or anything like that, but you do need to formulate, like, what is your belief? What's your statement of belief? So you can get that from any church. You can look at it and get inspiration from, like, what is a statement of belief, so that you can formulate your own original thoughts and beliefs on that. You don't need to go culture appropriate, you know, lineage or belief, or make up some bullshit about your connection to ancient fucking Egypt or whatever, or your alien experience. I mean, if it's sincere, if you're like, dude, I'm talking to this little fucking blue dude and he's telling me to do this, fuck yeah, put that in there, you know? But like, you don't need to go make shit up to, like, or try to make a connection and create some bullshit thing. Like, don't do that, dude. Just be sincere. What is it that drove you to the medicine? So, and why are you doing it the way that you're doing it? And to be able to explain that to people and really show your sincerity. That's what that statement belief is. And so other like-minded people can also, you know, relate with you, and you're getting the right people that are in there. So you want to do that statement of belief. Then all you need to do is incorporate within your state. File an article of incorporation for a religious organization or spiritual organization. Each state's different. And you can go to your Secretary of State's website, and you can file an article of incorporation usually for under $50. And then you're going to need, like, most states it's 3 people, some people it's 1 people, and you have to do it as a corporation. When you're a religious organization, don't go start an LLC or something like that. File as a corporation. It will take you like 10 minutes depending on your state. Yeah. So that, and the attorneys won't do that for you. They're going to walk you through it, and they're going to charge you thousands of dollars for something that you could do 30-40 minutes on your own. And that's the truth. And then you should assume that you have federal exemption from the taxes. So you don't need to file federal taxes. But in your state, you may have, depending on your state, different laws around taxes, to where you have to have a federal exemption to have state exemption. Well, if you're not going to go, I would not, I mean, and I'm not a tax professional or anything like that, but if you go get a 501c3, you're violating laws. And that's how the churches got shut down during COVID, and they were at risk of losing their IRS status. Like, unless you're planning on, like, being the fucking like the Joel Osteen of, you know, plant medicine, You don't need that shit. Or unless if you have like a sugar daddy donor that wants to give you a bunch of money, then yeah, that might be beneficial for them to go that route. But there's different federal tax things that you can do where you're not now committing federal financial crimes.
Right. And
So
so the 501c3 aspect of it isn't necessary for
no,
the sort of legal protections. Yeah, and I think that's
it
something
doesn't
that a
legally
lot of
protect you
people,
against shit. It actually puts you at more risk because now you're
yeah.
like 501c3 doesn't be like you could serve illegal
And
drugs, you know?
it's gross because like if you just Google like, all right, start a psychedelic church. There's quite literally companies and law firms that are vowing for the SEO to rank up there, to pitch you their, psychedelic and entheogenic law firm, pitch or whatever it is. And a lot of them, like there's one or two that I've read that is specifically mentioned like the extra add-on package is the tax exempt, 501c3 package, the extra add-on. And like at first it might, if you're just somebody who's just getting into it, you can be okay, whatever. But as somebody who like kind of has this, I have somewhat of an understanding now of these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And seeing that, it's so apparent to me. It's like, oh, brother, I don't know if that's sacred reciprocity right there. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are we,
No.
you're like, if I was somebody who didn't know better, you would be misguiding me kind of right now. Like, there's not
Mm-hmm.
and so,
And you think, and people think, oh, because I have this IRS status, that gives me more legal protection. It actually
no,
fucking doesn't. It doesn't. Your legal
yeah,
protection is the First Amendment. Your legal protection is that. And that's when you get arrested and you're in court, you're arguing your First Amendment right to do this, further confirmed by RFRA. That's it. You're not nothing about your 501c3 or tax, any of that shit even comes into play. And these people want to make it sounds more legitimate to people, and it is good. Like if you have money, then you want to avoid federal taxes.
yeah,
Or you're not paying federal tax because you're a church. The IRS is, you get that when you have a real nonprofit religious organization, you get that status. But if you want to stamp for maximum donation where you're taking in money, but most of us that are doing this, like we don't have shit. We don't have any money, or not like money where we want to get this tax write off. So, I mean, I guess if you're a big baller, like, and you have this money or you have a donor, and your donor wants to get that full benefit of the tax stuff, then handle that stuff. But most of us don't have that, and it's really irrelevant. And so, for these attorneys and tax people to kind of tell you that you need it, isn't necessarily true. Where it can be beneficial, like for me in my situation in the state of California, I even though I'm a nonprofit religious organization, I have to pay taxes because I don't have anything federal exempting me from that. However, the state taxes are pretty low. There was one year I paid like 8,000 or something. And I could go get a federal thing and then I have that and then go back to the state and stop paying the state taxes and stuff. But it's not, to me, it just hasn't been worth it. And I think that's a decision you can make when the ball starts rolling. Is it financially worth it for you to go get not a 501c3, dude, because you're going to be violating all kinds of laws under that. Like you're fucking with the IRS. Like, get informed of what is the best federal tax exempt status for you if it's a path you choose to do, but it's not something you need to do. And it sure as shit is not going to protect you in court if you get in trouble for this. Like it's not. Your sincerity and demonstrating your sincerity and the efforts you've gone to do this, ceremoniously, do it as a real sacrament. You have religious freedom, not freedom to just be a dipshit out there giving people drugs. And that's what
yep,
they're going to try to make it look like. So again, be sincere. That your sincerity and your First Amendment right are your biggest protection in this. But you got to get your state shit straight. Your state may require you to file your meeting minutes or your bylaws or whatever it is. So get educated on what is required with the article of incorporation of your state. And then once you do that and you get incorporated within your state, usually very quick process, you are then able to take that document to the IRS and get a FIN, or EIN number. And I think it's like $500 or something. And then you can go open a bank account with that. because you don't want all this money going into your personal bank account as well, especially with all of the electronic transactions being traced. You could get on, again, the Department of Homeland Security's radar for money laundering or trafficking or terrorism or something like that, because of all the fucking awesome rights we gave away at 9/11. So now there's files that go nightly to these organizations, these government organizations that look for red flags for drug dealing, for terrorism, for criminal activity and money laundering. And you don't want to get yourself on a list for that. So go open up a business bank account, get the employer ID number through the IRS, and file your fucking taxes, and do them through the state. Assume federal, that you don't need to do anything federally, and render unto Caesar what's due to Caesar. If you owe state taxes, pay them, you know? So you do that, and then, and know, like, the other thing is there's no real insurance liability protection on this. And have waivers. You need to have not just a waiver of general liability, but informed consent and a screening process for your participants. But informed consent is super important, because they're signing off saying, I understand what I was doing, because people will say, oh, I didn't know what it was, or I thought it was this or that. So you have all of the details, all the clinical, scientific explanations of what you're doing, all of that in there. And then you have that waiver of general liability. And it is something that's very much used at your own risk. When you're coming to these entheogenic ceremonies, you can't, there's no one to sue if you are, you get damaged in the experience. You know, this is very much used at your own risk, unless there's cases of gross negligence. With gross negligence, like you could, like in the Soul Quest case with Brandon Begley, and they were found, you know, Chris was, I think, 9 million, and Soul Quest as a church, 6 million found liable in that civil case. But does anyone have 15 million to pay his parents? No, they don't, you know, but it was more of a statement of showing the liability. That was a case of gross negligence. When you're grossly negligent for someone's care, there's nothing that will protect you, you know, like you can risk losing everything. I mean, one of the things I deal with is people don't like their experience, and they will come back to me, and everything, like when you're the organizer, you're the person putting it on, or you're the head of your church, all the shit's going to go back to you. Even if you're not serving the medicine, people threaten to sue me all the time. Because they had a bad experience. And it's like, we've never physically harmed anyone. And even if you go on Reddit and you read the things, it's all projections. It's people's experience. This is not a satisfaction guarantee. This is not you will like your experience. This is looking in the mirror fucking sucks. And when you start seeing the gross shit that's inside of you, and it's so easy just to go, it's everybody else. It's their fault. That's you, bud. All that shit you see is you. And a lot of people aren't ready for that. And that's one of the things that's the biggest challenge of, like, this, you know, when you have all these celebrities and these business leaders and these people saying, ayahuasca just gave me this multi-million-dollar business plan, or, you know, and people come looking for that, and they don't realize, like, they're going to have to look in the mirror real hard before that. So people will people threaten to sue me. I'm like, that's cool. Half of nothing is still nothing. So right on, dude. Like, I'm fucking broke. So go for it, dude.
I'm the ultimate vehicle for this.
Yeah, like, right on, dude. Sorry. Like, make it known, I don't have a bunch of shit for you to take from me. Like, yeah. And so knowing, like, that's the kind of shit you're going to have to deal with. We're in America. And when you're dealing with people are going to threaten to sue you, and there's not having a 501c3 or something isn't going to protect that if someone gets a wild hair up their ass and decides to pursue that. Or if you are just so grossly negligent, like in the Brandon Begley case, to where a civil case is against you, and you're going to have to spend all your resources defending yourself, you know? So don't be grossly negligent. And that's being informed, not being afraid to call 911, you know, taking those precautions so that gross negligence never comes into play in those situations. But don't let these attorneys, like, talk you into this shit. They've all created these packages of, like, doing this. And then the other people, and I get it. Like, there's a market for everything. And I have thought, like, damn, I could probably make some scratch, like, charging people a lot of money to help them set their churches up. You know, half of what the attorney's charging, you can get it for half and better, you know. but it's again, I struggle with fuck, who are you, I'd rather just put the information out there, figure it out, and whatever. But and then you have the other thing that people do is like the trauma informed. Go through our facilitator certification class. First off, it's uncredentialed, so it doesn't mean shit to anybody. Yep. Go through this facilitator training,
it's
and
$13,000.
$13,000. You're gonna be trauma informed, and you're gonna be able to do this, and you're gonna be an entheogenic. Like, first off, who the fuck are you, and what organization gave you the right to certify people? Oh, fucking nobody did. That's right. Unless you're MAPS, like, there's nothing that you're gonna do. You're, again, roping people through this, like, and not that the information can't be useful, but the most useful information, the most useful thing you could do is to have the experience and the transformation on your own. If you have not had that, get out, dude. You're not ready. Go change your life. Go through it. Go get reborn. Go to hell and back, because that's what you need to do this. Like, you go through hell, you get to the darkest rock bottom spot, and you pull yourself up from it, and then you go, you know what? I can fucking show other people how to do it. I survived this shit. Like, I went to prison. I came back. I rebuilt my life. It's totally possible. Me, drug addict, suicidal, total bitch. Like, well, total bitch still, but like,
that's not true.
Like, dude, I'm your cheerleader in hell. When you go to hell, I'm like, you can fucking do it, dude. Like, you're going to get so much strength down there. You can confront yourself. I don't get so much. I'm like, fuck, I drink ayahuasca. I'm like, why did I do this to myself again? Like, it's just peeling back the onion, going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. But you're able to help people that way. If you haven't been to, like, it blows my mind to see all these life coaches and counselors and therapists and people who haven't done psychedelics, who haven't done what they're doing. No, don't go to them. Don't go to them. Like, that's crazy. And they'll say, there's all these arguments like, well, you don't need to have a heart attack to be a heart surgeon. No, you fucking don't. But this is not that. Like,
it's not a great analogy for it. Honestly, like you can have a psychedelic experience and very safely come back. I'm sure if you could have a heart attack and very almost guaranteed safe to come back, that a lot of heart surgeons would look at that as an opportunity for them to better understand their own practice. If they were able to guarantee, it's
if there was a way to safely go through a heart attack, dissect it, learn it, and come back and be a better heart surgeon, I'm sure they would all do it, dude. Yeah, but it's like, this is not that. And like, you're guiding people through a spiritual process. And that's where it's like, it's more equivalent of like saying, I'm going to be a Christian pastor, but I don't believe in Jesus. Like, well, how can you lead people to Christ if you don't believe in Jesus or you don't believe in God? And that's really where it comes in. It's in this weird gray area of like clinical and religious. But I really put it in that religious bucket, because this is, and I can't imagine anything more disgusting and disturbing than doing ayahuasca in a doctor's office. Like, bleh. Like, that's, or any of these, doing shrooms in a doctor's office, maybe ketamine, that's man-made, whatever. But like, these are earth medicines, and doing them in the earth, doing it with somebody who's not going to judge you because they've been there. Somebody can be that beacon of hope for you because you've seen them go through that transformation process, or that they did, or they can give you really good advice when you're going through that. That's what's going to help you. Not somebody who read a fucking book about this. Like, go to somebody that's done the work and look at the life of the person that's serving you the medicine. If they are a total piece of shit and they aren't taking care of their responsibilities, their family, they're banging through chicks, every time they have a new goddess sitting at the altar who's somebody who was on a mat, and they've got that fast pass from the mat to their mattress, dude, don't go to them. The energy of the person serving you when you're in these vulnerable states is so important. So like, just for the people out there and for the people that want to do this, get your shit together first. I guess that's step one. Like, get your life together to where you're taking care of your kids. You're not out there sleeping around. You're not out there borrowing money and owing money to everybody, like where you actually have a life that has some integrity and some authenticity in it, that's step one. Like go get that shit together. Like if you're homeless and you got, 6 kids and 7 different baby mamas, like fix that situation first. Take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of your responsibilities, and then go into the space. Otherwise, it's just all the energy coming out is just going to wreck your life, and you'll be in the hospital, jail, or fucking just insane. And so you really need to be solid, like doing this. And I wasn't, and I'm not saying I'm like, oh, I'm the most solid person now, but I'm way more solid than I was. And that's why, like, when I went into this unknowingly, like not knowing how any of this was going to go and what was going to happen, and the energetics, the spiritual side of it, the legal, like just ignorant really to all of it, other than I know I had my own healing. It was a lot, and it had detrimental effects on my health and well-being, like absolutely horrible effects on it. And I wasn't taking care of myself, and I was continuously pouring from an empty cup. So when even situations would come up with difficult participants, I couldn't hold space for them because I couldn't hold space for myself. And I had to step back a lot to go work on my own healing. And I'm still, doing that. And I'm still in that process of it. And recognizing like when you're not well and when you need to take a step back and when you're not in a place to hold space. Because if you if you don't wholeheartedly believe and trust in these medicines that you're serving or these sacraments, don't fuck with them. If you can give somebody 5 grams of mushrooms and be like, dude, they're fine, because people are gonna tell you they're dying, you're the devil, they're being possessed, they need an ambulance. And one of the worst things you can do is administer too much medical care to somebody, or now you went to go take some shrooms and you've got a $10,000 medical bill, because you don't have insurance and they call 911. So you really, as a practitioner, an organizer, facilitator, whatever, you need to have 100% faith in what you're doing and understand when things are actually physically going wrong. And then be able to also be good with yourself and be able to take the abuse that will come at you from dealing with sick people. Sick people are going to project on you. They're going to blame you. They're going to tell you, if this doesn't work, I'm going to kill myself. And they may go kill themselves afterwards. And then you need to know that that's not your responsibility and it's not your fault. And then people who didn't get the miracle cure they thought they got, and now they're going to go talk shit about you or send you threatening emails or, have some religious conversion and start talking about how you're the devil. And you're going to catch a lot of abuse in this space because you're dealing with sick people, just like doctors do. And there's definitely compassion fatigue where you get sick of it and you get sick of putting up with people's shit. And I didn't do this to all these people. And you want to help everybody. You're like, I want to help them, but put yourself first. Don't subject yourself to abuse. You have got to have good boundaries with people. You've got to have good boundaries with your team, with the people serving medicine. If it's not you, you've got to have good boundaries. And that really should be your bylaws, is your boundaries that you're putting in place. And you're not going to put up with this shit. Otherwise, you will be destroyed first. And if you look at so many people that served in this space that are now dead, a lot by suicide, drug overdose, mystery shit, it's a real thing that can happen to you, is that your good intentions will not protect you in this space. You really need to do the work and have those boundaries. And that's been a huge lesson, for me to learn and to go through.
Yeah. That was something that I kind of was beginning to brush up against before, right as I got raided, and then kind of everything came to an end and I got hit with all of those charges because I had spent, leading up into that, I was having a lot of these ceremonies, probably 1 or 2 a week of these DMT ceremonies that are apartment. And typically within the ceremony itself, and this wasn't every ceremony, but this was most of them, I would ask the participants, after going through our whole sort of ritual and spiel and things, and getting situated, I would say to them, like, if you want me to, if it'd make you more comfortable, I will do this in front of you, before you, like right here. And probably like 2/3 of people would say yes. And so for this, like several, it's like 6 to 12 month span of my life, I was like facilitating and doing a lot of DMT. And by the end of it, I started to brush up against this thing that you're describing of, I really was falling into this very dark place. And a lot of it revolved around like, it felt like I was taking on too many other people's sort of like issues. Like I was like living in their issues and their problems. It wasn't that I was like holding space and witnessing them, you know, and observing them. It was they'd moved on from more than that. And so and I've heard other people within this particular space as well describe this same phenomenon and the sort of, um, importance of that aspect of it. And, within like traditional talk therapy, if somebody's going to school to be a psychologist and become a therapist, like that's something that they're taught within their curriculum. That's really important and emphasized within their curriculum is, hey, in order to be a therapist, you have to take care of yourself to help people with their other problems. In fact, you almost cannot be a therapist if you do not proactively and actively take care of yourself at all times. And so, yeah, you see that correlation. You see that with the psychedelic world as well too. And like, you're describing like for people to get into this space, people who want to do this type of work, like you kind of have to get your own shit together. And like, I think whenever you were describing that, and for a lot of people listening to this, what the visualization might have been was, and you even like kind of articulated some of this, but like, they're not paying their taxes, or they're over here doing drugs or whatever it is. Like, get your shit together, man. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's very true. But at the same time, and this kind of comes back to like the doctor clinical model thing we're talking about, like I would way rather go with the guy who may seem to others like doesn't have his shit together, but he's been through 30 mushroom trips, rather than the guy who seems like he has his shit together but has never tried mushrooms. And it's because, like you and I both know there's people who can have the doctor face, who can play the doctor character, but it's like, brother, you haven't talked to your soul yet. Like something about me, I might trust you when it comes to like asking what's wrong with my knee. When it comes to exploring the depths of my soul, no, brother, I don't trust you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you haven't explored that within yourself, And
yeah,
so,
like
yeah,
100%. Like if you had to do the choice of like the homeless dude who's taken, mushrooms 50 times and got this like amazing understanding of these esoteric and mesoteric, teachings, absolutely. But it's like it's not like, oh, you got to go buy a home and get a wife and nothing like that. But it's, you want to be in a spot where you're good and solid, and at least like if you're serving or holding space for people, at minimum, you have a place of peace to go back to and recover from that. Because if you're thrown into chaos, but yeah, under any circumstance, absolutely, like go again with the person with the experience, because the clinician, I just don't think the clinician model is where it's at, but there's things that we can really learn from them, like, hey, you're saying when you're a therapist, you get trained not to take on this shit from other people and how to recognize your own fatigues and burnout and things. And where we don't have that. And a lot of the, like facilitator trainings and stuff that I've seen from people are like trauma informed. And I get it. And you should, like, if you're serving these medicines, you should know life's a lot harder for people in America when you're Black, that should just be a given. Nothing needs to prove it. You should know that this person that's coming to you has had it probably harder than you if you're white. And that if you're a man and you're dealing with a woman, this woman's probably had it harder in ways that are not harder in life or had a worse life or anything, but has it hard in ways in life because of their physical body. Or if someone's disabled, having sympathy for their disability. If someone is, mentally ill, it's not like they chose that, like it's, or someone has this, it's having compassion for people's struggles and common sense and understanding. And that when somebody attacks you and when somebody is uses abusive language to you and comes at you, that that's coming from a place of trauma, you know, and you can handle it a little more compassionately, where you're not like, all right, motherfucker, let's go, you know, like, you want to talk shit to me like that? Like, you can't react like that, and you can't take it personally, and you have to be trauma informed to that extent of, you know, and then also knowing like what could trigger people, like asking consent to touch people, and things like that, where there is benefit of being trauma informed, but do you need to spend a year and, you know, $10,000? No. Talk to people, be interested in people. When you listen to people's stories about what happened to them and what triggers them, you start building up your mental library of like how to interact with people in this space in ways that are going to be less triggering to them. And then you're always going to discover new triggers, like, oh shit, like that set somebody off, you know, and then learn from everything from it. And so, yeah. And it's like, if you're, we kind of we have this like Judeo-Christian thing model in America, where we see it as like almost heroic to take on people's guilt, take on people's pain. Like you're being a martyring yourself, and you don't get to martyr yourself long in this field without, you know, burning out or dying or whatever. But you have to, you're a filter, or you're a garbage man. You're helping take the trash out, and you don't want to keep piling up the trash in your house, and it's going to stink, and it's going to gross, and you're going to get maggots, and it's going to become a problem. Like, you have to dispose of it. You don't like, but if you have a savior complex or a wound that makes you want to take on people's pain because it makes you feel good, that's the worst. And so many people do that, and you just see them like wrecking themselves. And I think a lot of my issues too in this was that feeling of like, let me take your pain from you, and then not knowing how to transmute it, and doing kind of accidentally doing shamanistic things, like, and then not having the skill set or the belief or the health in myself to be able to do that. And it will kind of accidentally happen, where these shamanic energetic transfers will happen. So you got to really know yourself and take care of yourself to have any kind of like longevity in this space.
Yeah. Very wise words. I really appreciate that, Courtney. I got to know, why did you guys choose the hummingbird?
So, when I started Hummingbird, I was working pretty exclusively with Kamsa Taita from Putumayo, Colombia. And the medicine that they cooked is called Ayahuasca, which means hummingbird medicine. And so the ayahuasca we used was Ayahuasca. We were trying to come up with a clever name. And so our just kind of like working title was Hummingbird Church. I mean, we were coming up with like fucking the most ungrounded shit, like Temple of Awareness and Self-Discovery, and like, and just going like hog on these things. And I was like, dude, this is going to scare so many people. Like, this is not going to be something that resonates with it. Like, we're just going to get more fucking yoga instructors and life coaches if we do that shit. And so just out of like desperation for needing to get a URL and get the ball rolling, my friend from work that was helping me with the website stuff, he's like, dude, why don't you just use Hummingbird Church? And I was like, dude, the word church is going to be too triggering for people. And he's like, fuck it, let it be triggering, you know, like. And also, like, with the hummingbird, the indigenous belief around it was that the hummingbird, you know, being the only bird that can fly backwards, that when the vibration that's created from its wings thins the veil between our world and the invisible world, making it a vehicle that loved ones and spirits can communicate with you and have interactions with you. And so a lot of people have like this connection to hummingbirds that didn't come from a belief system that they have. It's just from their own personal interactions and seeing a hummingbird. And it's one of the strongest animals in the animal kingdom.
I've always loved hummingbirds. I asked just because I liked it. I love the logo, the aesthetics of it all, the way it feels. Since I wanted to ask, I'm sure I assume there was, you know, some sort of story behind it. But I've always loved hummingbirds. A couple of weeks ago, me and a buddy were on a hike, and we spent a considerable amount of time. We get into these weird, like, niche parts of our discussions, but for some reason, we spent a good chunk of time speaking about hummingbirds, and he actually is a biologist. So, like, when we get into certain rabbit holes about animals, he, like, will really put me on a lot of game and tell me a lot of interesting things. But we went down this long rabbit hole about hummingbirds, and he was telling me a lot of interesting things about hummingbirds. And then, yesterday I was texting you about this podcast and scheduling this podcast with you. And my girlfriend came home from work, and somebody at work had this elderly lady had gifted her with a pair of socks that had hummingbirds all over them. And I was like, babe, you're not going to believe this. I was like, I just was like talking to this woman named Courtney. I was like, we have an interview tomorrow for Hummingbird Church. So yeah, it's just one of those like cute little universal winks that I wanted to let you know about.
No, dude, totally. When I see hummingbirds now, like I have this like just assumption, I don't know, or belief, I guess now it's gone beyond assumption, like it's an actual belief that I'm like, okay, I'm having an interaction with a spirit on the other side that gives a shit about me, I don't know if I'm like, oh, is it grandma? I don't know about that. I haven't gotten the specifics, but like when they come up and like, because sometimes it's so random and then it'll just come up to you, and you're like, and whether it's true or not, it's a belief that makes my life a little cooler and better. And like, so yeah, and I had like no connection to hummingbirds before. I thought they were like something old ladies, were into. I was like, yep. And they're cool to like have a hummingbird feeder out and watch them all fight with each other. And, and when they see them pass,
they're a fascinating animal. I think like universally they pretty much catch everyone's eye. But what you just said there, I think summarizes how I feel about all of this shit. You said, whether I believe it or not, or whether it's true or not, believing it makes my life more fun and better. Mm-hmm. Like that's honestly how I feel about all of this, everything that we're discussing right now, honestly.
Ditch your belief system if it doesn't make your life better or cooler or life more interesting. That's all you need to know, dude. If your religion bums you the fuck out, get out of it, dude. If your belief about anything makes your life shittier, stop it. Stop believing in it. Like
100%.
Just switch it up, dude. You create your own reality, and you're the one that the narrative in your head it's all on you, dude. So you have the power to change it at any time. Believe any goofy shit you want. Like it's your life, and you should just whatever makes it cooler, do it. And
you can move wherever you want to in the field, backwards, forwards, upwards, downwards, just like a hummingbird, right, Courtney?
For sure, dude. There you go, dude.
Yeah.
For sure, you absolutely can, and that's one of the things, when you start going, there's so many layers to entheogens and plant medicine and different like I've drinking ayahuasca hundreds of times, and I've got this, I think I had a very complex relationship with it, and now I have a very simplistic relationship. And I used to think I knew everything about ayahuasca. I know now I don't know shit. Like I just know this is an ally to humanity. It is one of our most beautiful, amazing friends, and it is nothing to fear. And it is truly medicine for our mind, body, soul. And it is here to help us. And if it scares you, it's because you need the shit scared out of you. Like you have that good friend that's like, dude, you dumb motherfucker. Like ayahuasca is that friend. Or, oh, do you need to go to hell? Do you need to go to hell to be grateful for your life? Because nothing makes you feel more grateful for your life than a fucking hardcore trip to hell, dude. And then surviving through it and being like, oh my God, like it's like Ebenezer Scrooge, Christmas Carol going, if you need to go see the ghost of Christmas past, ayahuasca will do that. If you need to see ghost Christmas present, ghost Christmas future, you need to see all three of them in one fucking night so you can get your shit together. Ayahuasca will do that for you. Everything it does to you is for your benefit. And it's for you to be a better human. And not just, it's not like this Judeo-Christian value of good and bad, dark, evil and darkness, and I'll throw all that shit out the window. Like it is for you. Like the truest, the highest vibration is being authentic. And that is a direct reflection of God. When you are in your authenticity, when you're in your authenticity for how you live your life, what you create, your art, your interactions with human beings, that is the most spiritual thing that you can do. And that's not going around and being like, oh, namaste, or wearing all white. It's like I said, this is me. This is my personality. This is who I am. Like, this is the way that God made me, and I have no desire to change it. But I put my fucking shopping cart away, and I don't slam the door on people when I walk into a restaurant, and I'm more mindful of things that I do because I give a shit about human beings. And these medicines will show you that, how to be a better human. And so ayahuasca, it's just so fun when I see all these videos of this fear and the mother came to me, and then, and like, she did this or that. It's like, that's all projections, that's all your interpretation, like, of things. And that's cool. We got to interpret this information, but it's going to give you whatever you need the way you need it. And if that's a big hug and connection and this God experience, or if you need little teeny doctoritas to crawl into your ear and start working on your brain and pulling parts out, like, shit, that happens too, dude. But it's just knowing that ultimately, no matter how weird, wonderful, or scary it gets, it's to make you a better human. And it to have the balls to go through this experience and accept that, and not blame it on the person serving the medicine, or to blame it on the ayahuasca. Like, to realize it's you in your head. It's different if someone violates your physical body, or does something kind of manipulative to you, but if you're having a safe guided experience in this, you got to realize that this is you, and it's just showing you, it's a diagnostic tool to show you how to be a better human being. And all these are, and they're our allies. They are literally our allies. They're not here to hurt us. They're here to show us a different way to be, and a happier way to be, that's authentic with ourselves. And that's why it's not the same message being delivered to each person. It's what's true to that person. And that's, you can get really, like, there's common themes and stuff, with like psychedelic experiences, like, the gestures or angels, or these different things that are common, but the experience is ultimately always different, because you're a different person, and the person next to you taking it's a different person, and you're a different person each time you do it. And so if you really, like, you believe in these as an ally for humanity, you're on the right track. If you don't believe this is an ally for humanity, and you don't really believe that the medicine gives you what you need when you take it, then you don't do this. And it's scary. I mean, there's time I can barely get myself up to get a second cup sometimes, because I'm just like, fuck, man. Like, I thought I had it all mapped out, and then I drink ayahuasca again. I'm like, I don't know shit. Like, and I'm going deeper and deeper into myself, and it's so hard. It takes so much courage to do this, and to just keep going deeper and deeper. And you can lose your shit on it if you abuse it. And one of the things, like, for practitioners and people that are using this ceremoniously, is you gotta handle your own integration. You gotta handle your own shit. And when you're going, you gotta know when you need medicine, and you gotta know when you don't need medicine. And for anybody that's like, you've had this experience and you're wondering, like, oh, should I go back and do it again? You got to ask yourself, are you ready for more? Like, because they will always give you more. Like, it's a never ending more for these entheogens. Like, you can keep going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. But if you're not ready for it, then don't do it. Come back, when you are ready for more.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I was going to wrap things up, but I have one last one. This bit of a loaded one, I have a feeling, but I really want to ask you this regardless. So, and like you were kind of like, you brushed up against this a little bit in what you were just speaking about, but a lot of the talk in the psychedelic world, a lot of the narrative, a lot of what is spoken about with these particular experiences and the healing that comes from it, and the efficacy of them, is this 1-2 punch of intention and integration, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this, people speak a lot about the intention that goes into the experience and then the integration that comes out of it. And I'm like, I agree with all of that. Like I agree with it to my, like, viscerally to my being, but something I question often when I hear this, because this is like anybody you speak to about this is what is said, this is what is spoken, this is what we're
Yeah.
doing, you know. Um, but I find myself like wondering sometimes, and I'm genuinely like trying to think out loud with you, Courtney, about this. But like, are we potentially missing something by it always being this focus of, hey, we're intention integration, tension integration? It's always, it feels sometimes as if though there's like this. It's not that it's extractive, but it's almost as if like, all right, I'm going into this because I want to pull something out of this. I want to like, you know, and um, I remember when I was a kid one time, this pastor guy, I'm not a Christian, but this pastor guy told me, he's like, you know, sometimes you don't have to pray to ask for anything. He's like, you can pray
Mm-hmm.
just to hang out with God, you know? And sometimes I wonder with a lot of this psychedelic work and what I've experienced within myself and how it's evolved within myself over a long period of time. Like, is it okay for us to take these things just to commune or to connect with God? Does there always have to be like an intention with a message and a download and an integration of that message? I see. I absolutely. I also agree that using them in the wrong context or abusing them quite often and typically does lead down a sort of hairy route for people. But can people use it properly without having to use its quote unquote intention or integration? Can people just sort of connect with God, if that makes sense? I know it's a very
Yeah.
loaded question, but this is something I've been postulating about a lot myself. And I don't know if I don't know exactly what the right answer is with that.
Yeah. I mean, this is something that like I've mulled around for years on. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that ideally, like where you want to get to is that you are just using these to connect with God. And that
Mm-hmm.
you, once you make that connection with God and you have that strong channel, you don't even need them to hang out with God. You can bring that energy in through a meditation, through looking at a bird or being out in nature. Like you have that connection with God. You use these as a tool to strengthen your relationship with God, which is the ultimate healing. I think we talk so much about intention and integration in America because I mean this shit doesn't exist in the jungle. Like there's no fucking integration circle, dude. There's no therapist. There's no intention setting. It's like, dude, you're taking this because your life's a mess or you're physically ill. Like that's it. There's no like any of that. But just I think it's more of a cultural thing. Like and as I mean, I see people every ceremony get so bummed out because they set an intention and they didn't get it. And it's like, well, first off, don't set an intention like you're rubbing a fucking genie lamp, getting wishes out of it. Otherwise, I would be 120 pounds and have a successful romantic life, dude. You still got to do the fucking work. So if you're going there being like, I want to meet my soulmate, I want to have a soulmate. Well, maybe you need to do a lot of work on your ass before you're healthy enough to have that. And so maybe your ceremony that you're going through, and it had nothing to do with finding a soulmate or the tools to have a healthy relationship, but trust that it's getting you there because that's what you want in life. If that's what you really want in life is like a deep romantic connection. Or if you are an artist and you want to unlock this creativity, you have got to trust that these are the steps that are getting you there because that's what you asked for. If you're authentic in your ask, just know that maybe the step isn't what you're getting. But don't look at this as a quick fix um or a well to make wishes into. It's not. It's hard. You still have to do the work, and all of us can have anything that we want in life. Anything. That's the secret of life. You can have whatever you want, but you got to work really fucking hard for it. And there's no shortcut to that. Anybody that's, maybe it's different if you're like a Nepo baby or somebody and you get fucking hooked up in life, but most of us don't. And so you can have whatever life you want, but you got to work really hard. You can't just make wishes and get the life you want. And with these, I think the intention thing, a lot of times it's used to kind of safeguard these and from abuse is stressing the intention of it. um the if you don't just go do ayahuasca because it sounds cool, or your friend did it, or you have a YouTube channel and you want to talk about it. Like, you got to know why you're doing this shit. Like, why are you smoking DMT? Why are you smoking bufo? Why are you taking ayahuasca? Why are you doing this? And that's what I see. Like, for me, the intention is why. That intention might just be like, I'm fucking miserable. I want to die. I hate my life. I'm confused. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, so you're coming for a little guidance or relief from that. And that can be just all the intention you need. And if your intention is, I just want to commune with God, fuck yeah, that's a cool intention. But just knowing why, I think the intention should just be, why are you doing this? And trusting that the process is getting you to the want. It's a step in it. And when I go into the medicine and I'm in a good spot and I'm drinking it, the only thing I ask for, my prayer, my intention is, God, please show me the truth and give me the grace to accept it. That's it. Show me what I need to see. And sometimes it's really painful. And sometimes it's really hard, but the intention is that what gives me the strength to get through the hard part of that experience. And that's what I would tell anybody is, like, let your intention be your strength. What's going to carry you through it? So if you're like, dude, I want to be a better mom, and when things start going to hell and the energy gets chaotic or it gets overwhelming, center yourself with that intention and pull on it as strength to get you through it. Like, I know that this is helping me become a better mother or father or person, or I want to kick my fentanyl addiction, or whatever it is, or I don't want to go through life confused and lost and feeling like a victim. Like, use that as a sense of strength to carry you through it. And like, when medicine starts showing me what a douchebag I am, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to look at my blooper reel. I know that I need to look at it. I need to feel it, because I'm asking God to show me the truth. And I believe that that's what the plant's doing. And then integration, it's so funny, dude, because I think the integration that people do is sometimes just erasing everything that happened in ceremony, way more harmful, especially when you get like somebody that's your integration coach that hasn't actually done shit with their life, and and is scared to take psychedelics. Like, it can do, it's just no man's land. It's a Wild West. The greatest integrator ever, fucking hands down, title holding champ, is Mother Nature. Go be human. Go out, take a walk in the park, go on a hike, hang out with an animal. Animals are there to give you unconditional love and not judge you. Like, nature, you're just a fucking animal on a floating rock going around a nuclear bomb, dude. Like, just know that. Stop making it so complex. The indigenous, just everything's so simple with them, like, it's so simple and so prolific, and we overcomplicate things and we miss the simplicity in them. So it's like, your integration should just be knowing you went through a really hard process a lot of times, and your reality might get shattered because you're holding on to these dumb beliefs that you've been conditioned. And those beliefs start falling away and you start wondering who you are. And it's like, nature will always show you that. Nature will always be that mirror and that tool. So in the jungle, like, they don't have that. They'd laugh their ass off if they knew like how we're sitting around in circles and stuff, like talking about everything. They don't explain their visions to each other. They're like, that's your gift, like, but we're Americans and we're sensitive and we need to talk and we lack connection. And a lot of us don't have community. And so the integration is necessary a lot of times. And do it as a community. I would kind of steer away from the one-on-one integration coaching and stuff. I think that's a lot of times way more harmful than helpful, because you don't know unless you know that person and they've really gone to where you want to be. Don't fucking take some ding dong from Instagrams like integration shit. You don't need it. Pray to God. Build a relationship with God. All this shit goes down. Department of Homeland Security shows up. I'm praying, somebody's threatening to sue me or, talking shit on Reddit or harassing me. I pray to God for those answers and for the strength to like get to carry me through the experience, and also to understand like, okay, when it's over and enough is enough, And so I I really would steer away from the one-on-one integration stuff unless you really know the person, because you're giving that person so much authority and control over your faculties and like your spiritual thing, and you're searching for answers when all of them are inside of you. All of them are inside of you. You don't need anybody's external truth or a religion or anything like that. You have all the answers in you. So go within instead of without, and fucking watch these integration coaches, you know. But if you something comes up and you have like a really serious psychological thing that you need to address, get a trusted mental health clinician, you know, that can help guide you through that. Like, especially when it comes to repressed memories, so many people on psychedelics are like, oh my god, my uncle molested me, or my dad molested me, or I think I saw a murder, or, you know, these things come up, and they're not always actual. Like, it can be metaphoric or a feeling, or you think you saw something and it's coming up in your subconscious, and then you're struggling with like, do I confront my family, do I say something, you know? And that's where you really need to toe that line and find somebody that's qualified to handle that, and that most certainly fucking is not an integration coach, you know, who has there's no like the school of integration, the US board of integration coaches. Like, again, it's just people that paid a lot of money to go to somebody to tell them what to think and do, and that person may or may not have any useful training or knowledge to guide you through that. The best advice I have, if you're thinking of considering experiencing one of these for the first time, is to do your research, do your homework, you know, make sure the group's a good fit for you, or the practitioner, if you're doing a one-on-one experience. If you're not comfortable in large groups, don't go to a large group. If you want a lot of one-on-one attention, then go to somebody that specializes in that. If you want to sit indigenous, do your research on the tribe. You know, some of them are, the Colombians are a lot harder, and the Brazilians, you typically have a more musically guided experience, you know. So do your homework. Make sure that you're sitting with someone that's right for you. If something in this space costs like over $5,000, just fucking say no. Like, don't do it. Don't let fear drive you to paying an attorney a bunch of money, or an integration coach. Or, you know, if you're so afraid to look in the mirror that you want to do this with a doctor, then I don't think you're ready for this experience. Also, a lot of people say they want to go to the jungle. They want to go do it in the jungle. I would say try to do it in America for the first time. And I'm not saying that because I'm like, oh, more sales for us. You know, when you're in America, you have 911 and you have medical facilities and you have your support network around you. When you're in the jungle, there is no 911. So if you're going to have an adverse reaction to the medicine, it's better to have it here. And then if you do this and you absolutely love the medicine and you want to continue to work with it, then hell yeah, get your ass to the jungle and have that authentic experience. Also, Costa Rica is not where this is from. So if you're going to Costa Rica to have an authentic experience, you're not having it. You're just going to Costa Rica. So go to the actual Amazon and sit with the actual indigenous people. And don't forget about the indigenous people. It's their knowledge and their medicine that's helping us. So we should support their communities. And so really make sure that do your research. Don't show up to Iquitos, Peru without a fucking game plan and then just go sit with somebody. Like, you're putting your life at risk and your whole psyche at risk. So research, have a plan, experience it in the United States for the first time if you can. And then absolutely go to the jungle if you love this and you want to continue to do it. But sit with the indigenous people and let's not forget about them in all this and leave them behind in this movement. Yeah. So that's all I have. That's all all I have to say.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Courtney. Where can people find you and your church at?
They could go to www.hummingbirdchurch.com. We're also on Instagram, Hummingbird Church. Primarily, it's just a meme account because it's just me posting memes in the stories. But we will have our events and stuff there. So on the event tab, that's where everything is. If you sign up for our newsletter, we won't harass you too much. I try not to do more than one a month, and sometimes I don't even hit that goal. But that's where we'll announce financial aid, scholarship packages, and give you the links to apply for those. When we have new events, we have a really fucking rad community of people that do amazing things all over the United States and through Zoom. We have open mic medicine music nights out in Los Angeles that Eloy runs. We have breathwork events. We have free weekly, community support that we
Do you guys have
offer.
any events out? Do you guys have any events in Tennessee?
Dude, we just did a retreat in Franklin, Tennessee, April 4th through 6th. That
Franklin,
was
Tennessee
fucking
is
hard,
like
dude. Tennessee
it's
is hard,
like
dude.
what's hard about Tennessee?
It's a different energy, man. Like
Oh yeah.
if your state don't touch the ocean, you've had a different life, dude. It's a harder, like coming from Southern California and going into
Uh-huh.
Tennessee. I was like, fuck, dude. Like the
Uh-huh.
religious stuff that people have been
Yeah.
through, the harder lives that they have,
Hmm.
the drug abuse and the
The
opioids,
poverty. Yeah.
poverty,
Yeah.
um, just not having the resources that we have in California. I mean, it was a culture shock to us,
I was curious about your guys' involvement in Tennessee because I saw that on the website, and yeah, that's why I wanted to ask.
It
I
was our
mean, I
first.
would be interested in some sort of event or something like that and attending, but just in general, I was like, okay, what's the Tennessee demographic been like?
It's it was just different, like
Yeah.
I'm next week or the 16th. We're doing Iowa.
Hmm.
Uh, so we're going to be up in Iowa with Gaspar, who's an amazing Shipibo medicine man. Um, and I want to go to the Midwest and to the South again, but I will not go there unless we are bringing someone who is a real deal curandero, because
Hmm.
I don't bringing somebody to just serve medicine who's not an actual curandero into those places where that's where people need that next level of help.
Yeah.
I don't think we went with the best servers for that demographic. So I
Hmm.
do want to go back because I like a challenge and people need the medicine there, but I need to get the cost way down. I need to, it needs to be something that's more of like, we're doing this just to like do this because we believe in it. And then to bring somebody that can hold space and handle and really guide those people through the more complex traumas that they have, that are not that people in California don't have hard lives, but I'm saying it's a totally different experience. So yeah,
Yeah.
we'll probably be back. I got to recover from that one though. And then come back and do it because people need it, man. We did Missouri, we did Drexel, Missouri last year, and that was, man, it was a bunch of farmers, and I was like,
Yeah.
how the fuck how did you guys even get here, dude? Like this is wild. Like the medicine just brings them in.
And do you see why I say, like, I feel like my community needs it? Like, there is something in these. I mean, it's I think everywhere needs it, right? But like, I have a lot of friends and a lot of like my business partners and things. I'll spend a lot of time out in the West Coast and Denver, LA, and stuff like that. And but I live here in rural Western Kentucky. That's home, and so it's just every time I bounce back and forth, it's this stark, just completely different world that people step in, like that people live in, and realities that people exist in, and say LA than they do in Kentucky, whether you're poor or rich, right? And so I've always wondered how that plays out, and not like I've kind of personally experienced how that plays out within ceremony itself. You know what I'm saying? And so yeah, I feel like it's in a lot of these entheogenic churches, a lot of the retreat centers, facilities, like it does, like they are cropping up in like certain areas, like are certain hot spots for them. And so like there is like this large demographic of people, like within like the Midwest and stuff like you're describing, that does have this deep darkness that hasn't been dissected and dove into by the West Coast hippies yet fully.
Bro, that is
Um,
like level fucking 10. That is on like Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri. Like that's hard mode. Like
yeah.
I mean, it's hard mode. Like it's not Washington, Oregon, Arizona, California, like this West Coast, even New York, Florida. Like it is, I greatly underestimated and was ill prepared for how dense that, and it's not anything like, the people are fucking wonderful, dude. That's why I will again subject myself and try again at that area. But it was different. It was different, and it was like, just, and even culturally, like our little California shit doesn't work out there, and
Hmm.
connecting with people, And
Yep.
when you're doing a ceremony for people that are way fucking tougher than you, like
And you say, let's set our intentions, and then Billy Bob's like, the hell?
yeah, he's like, how about go fuck yourself?
Yeah.
Like, and then getting them it's just, it's different. I think now, going back, I'm not going to say, oh, I'll be totally prepared, because I won't be, like that's something that I think is going to come with experience, but not walking in there totally naive to what you're dealing with. And then also having local involvement. Like, it would be really cool to have people like, yeah, we're doing Kentucky, like, hey dude, come on out, man. Like, and be that cultural ambassador of sorts to like the locals. And that was, the first time, like, we were invited there, but we were invited there by people from California, that lived out there. And you do have these entheogenic churches that are popping up around the Midwest and the South, but a lot of them are people that came from Florida and California and are looking for cheap property. And so they're coming here and they're not connected to the culture, and they're opening these churches or retreat centers, but they're not from there. And so you really, to get the people from a place, like, you be one of them. That's what's going to attract them. Otherwise, you're just going to have a bunch of people from fucking Florida and California coming to Kentucky to take medicine, and like, they're just doing it there instead of in Florida, California. So yeah. So yeah, hopefully, like, I don't know, dude. I really got I when I left Tennessee, I drove out of there. I was like, I'm fucking never coming back, dude. We had a tornado. And then and then when we were driving, I took my mom, because my family lives in Kansas City, Missouri, and so I took my mom with me, because I had all the stuff shipped to her house. And so we were driving out there, and there was tornadoes, and we drove through Kentucky, fucking tornadoes. And then, dude, driving through Kentucky on the way back, everything flooded. And we were driving, and this is like, again, the cultural difference between California and Kentucky.
Was this recently?
Yeah, this is April.
Okay, we just recently had, you were here for, this is like the worst floods we've had in a long time. Oh, you may have drove through like where I was at. That's interesting. The floodings and, yeah.
Dude, I drove through all this flooded stuff. I'm in the car and I'm looking out and I go, what are those? It just like looked odd. And I was like, I didn't remember this big giant lake, like when we drove out, and it was the roofs of people's houses.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck? Like, and I had no idea that, and I just knew that in Tennessee we were having tornadoes. And then when we left on this April 7th and we're driving back to Kansas City, I just seeing all the flooding. I was like, this is fucking wild. And again, that culture, like, we have everything burns up and lights on fire out here, but it's it was just such a culture shock all around. Weather shock, people shock, flood shock. Like, yeah, it's a lot. So yeah, people, if you want this in your communities, you guys should do it. Yeah. Otherwise, it's going to just be a bunch of Californians and Floridians coming out there and getting the shit scared out of them.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Courtney. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
And if we're out there again, dude, come on, come be our guest.
I would love to. Please let me know. Anywhere in the region, anywhere here in the Midwest, whatever. If just shoot me a text.
If you want to go up by Des Moines, we're there the 15th through the 7th, or 15th through the 18th.
15th through the 18th. You said it's in Iowa?
Iowa, Des Moines, yeah.
Okay. I'll have to see how far Iowa is from me, but I may be able to make that. I have a big trip out to California the week after that, but I may be able to make that one work. Shoot me some details about that.
Okay, yeah, I'll shoot you details, because we also, the weekend after that, have one in Northern California, and then we have one in Southern California the following weekend. So
okay. I'll be in Southern California from like May 19th, 20th, like through the end of May. I'm going for Lightning in a Bottle, the music festival.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So
yeah, right on. We have May 30th through June 1st. We've got a ceremony in Southern California with the Yamanawa tribe from Brazil.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So we'll be in the same region.
Yeah, I'll shoot you over a link that has all the dates, and then anyone you want to go to, just let me know. Even if you can just go to one ceremony, like, it's totally fine. Pop in, be our guest.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, because I don't know if I mentioned this at all, but I want to kind of like, I'll probably use some parts of this. It's going to be its own podcast, but I want to use parts of this. I'm working on a bigger project for the channel. It's going to be a big documentary. It's going to be called something like The Rise of Psychedelic Churches in the United States. I want to like fully in depth, like just through my own understanding and talking to and participating in it even, fully understand and distill and articulate this sort of phenomenon that's happening right now. Because like I look out at the press around it, and like every now and then there'll be like a good podcast with like where somebody has like, you know, say the person in the church represents, and like people can get some decent information that way. But nobody has really done like a comprehensive like, hey, here's what's really going on and here's the full spectrum of everything that's happening. Because like there's people like you, and then like there's also people like you said who have dumped $2 million to fight the DEA. And then there's dudes, I met these dudes in California who got a ketamine church who were all about alien contact while on ketamine.
Yeah,
and,
dude.
Yeah, there's this crazy spectrum to it. And so I love it. I think it's really, really interesting and going to evolve in a very interesting way. And so like, yeah, I'll probably use some of this within that material as well too. And so I say all that because, yeah, I at some point I would like to like interview some people in person and stuff like that as well too, and maybe like
Dude, that would be like the most interesting documentary because like the spectrum of it, and then like the root behind it is so simple. It's like fucking religion and medicine isn't working, dude. Like all this shit that we've put ourselves like fully in is like these old controlling religions and just popping a pill for everything, and mainly mental health. You know, like we suck at treating mental health and addiction issues in the United States, and we have a fucking epidemic of it, and we're all watching our loved ones die or ourselves battle these addictions. And then you go to these stupid clinics and it doesn't work and you just fail. And then rehab, you have like a 10% chance of actually getting sober after going. That doesn't fucking work. And so now, and then, you know, post COVID, everybody started questioning shit and going like, yeah, this isn't going to be another 9/11. Like, we're not going to just get all scared and give the government all our rights. People have been like rebelling against the system in various different ways. You know, you have like the extreme leftist and the conservative, but they're raging against the same fucking machine. It's just in their own different way. And then you have this rise of entheogens and people going on more individual journeys after COVID from being locked up and isolated than these like group things, and not being afraid to go against the grain a little bit more in America. And so I really see this rise as something that is post COVID. Like, it's totally like, I mean, I was slinging fucking mushrooms during COVID and business was booming, dude. A pound of mushies was like $1,400. Like,
I know, right? I was also doing the same thing. That is so funny you say that, Courtney.
it was a great time for psychedelics.
It was a good time to be a psychedelic drug dealer. Was during COVID.
Oh my God.
Was great. Whenever the stimulus checks were on the way, Courtney, I was stocking up. I was stocking up. I knew shit
we
was
got
about
a
to
second
fly.
round. I want to need more mushrooms, dude. And everybody started doing psychedelics. Like my friend's parents wanted mushrooms. Everybody was down. They're sitting in their houses. It was like the saying: if you can't go out, you go in. And so people were doing. You had it really. We could thank COVID for and our government for locking us up and giving people no other thing to do than look at their own fucking shit. And now, and then, you know, with the churches, like, I don't think our government intended for this shit to happen at all. Like, the church is closing down and people are going like, I don't need that fucking church. And, oh, you want to put you want to tell me what to put in my body? Fuck you. Like, it created a very anti-government narrative that got people to really question the system. And
I think like collectively a lot of us were on the fence about being anti-government, and then like
they pushed us over.
Yeah, I think just the majority of us just got pushed over, and this kind of like, all right, like I tried looking the other way, you know, but God, this is too much now. And I agree with you. I think like, I think this use of an exploration of psychedelics and altered state of consciousness, I think that is something that exists universally within humans, no matter what culture or area, whatever you come from. And I think any sort of attempt to I think any sort of attempt at oppression is not going to end well for you. But like, especially if like within the process of generally oppressing people, you are also oppressing this sort of mystical impulse, like that's going to very like beautifully express itself at some point in this kapow. Nope,
Yeah.
we're here, you know? Yeah.
It's wild, and it's really, it's the Wild West. Things are just getting started. It's new territory, you know, and like how you're saying, that the only things that people really have to hold on to in this space, and you just hear these repeated over and over again, are integration, intention and integration, intention and integration, without really any meaning or meat behind it, like substance behind it. Like you're just, it's just on repeat. It's just how we get, you know, and it's because it is the Wild West, and I feel like I'm playing cowboys and Indians, you know, like we're bringing up these indigenous people from South America to like help us pull our head out of our asses, and then, you know, we have this cultural clash, and it, to me, I go, it's like where we decimated these people. We absolutely fucking decimated them to where there's just a few left, you know, genocided the shit out of them, oppressed them, fucked them over in every way you possibly could. And now they're sharing their knowledge with us to help heal us from fucking genocide, war, addiction, greed. And it really, that's where like the prophecy of the eagle and the condor, you go, well, fuck it. Is that what's happening, you know? And it's just, you know, I'm writing, like I've gotten into television writing, like I've had a career change, and I'm writing in the process of writing a show right now about that, about entheogenic churches, like a fictionalized. So we had a couple people approach us about a reality show, and we almost fucking did it. And I was like,
oh, that'd have been so cool. But also I could see why that's.
Yeah, I don't want to go to jail, dude. Have you seen Kentucky Ayahuasca?
I have. Yeah. It's there's a lot of layers to the Kentucky Ayahuasca thing. I think the gentleman who used to run that church has actually passed away now.
Yeah.
And
dude, they were doing some wild shit during COVID where you could fucking Zoom an ayahuasca ceremony, and they would ship ayahuasca out in a fucking moonshine thing.
I remember that. So that documentary, Kentucky Ayahuasca, came out like at a very formidable time for me. It was like when I first started experimenting with psychedelics myself. Just so happened to also live in Kentucky, you know, so I was very interested in that documentary. But yeah, I just like that. That individual in particular, he had a lot of like controversy around him, I believe, and how he sort of like facilitated. But it was even at a young age, there was something I intuitively felt from watching that I couldn't articulate at the time that I can now. And that was that, okay, maybe he's not going about this in the 100% complete proper way, but yet this is what's happening in the universe. And it's kind of like the beginning steps of like whatever he's doing is going to evolve into something bigger. Like if there's one crazy bank robber guy in Kentucky with his ayahuasca church, how many ayahuasca churches are going to be in Kentucky in 20 years from now, you know, or whatever, you know?
And it's really like these, because you look at the people that are the pioneers in this, you know, and they're the people that have the fucking balls to do it. And those are typically not the people that maybe necessarily should. Like even myself in my own story, like fucking cokehead, you know, recovering addict, probably fucking diagnosed maniac, like, but has the balls and the conviction to do it. And so like Steve with Kentucky Ayahuasca, like had the balls and conviction to do it. Chris Young over at Soul Quest, balls and conviction to do it. And the people that are like, dude, figuring out smuggling routes and getting stuff from the jungle to here aren't going to be your most upstanding citizens. You know, if you got a criminal mind, you got a fucking criminal mind. And if you get involved in criminal activity, you typically have some pretty big fucking balls. And so those are the people that came and got this here. We're not like the most upstanding people, because the upstanding people wouldn't have the fucking balls to do it. So 100%. You look at, you know, like I hope to God in 20 years is a way better version of me that's doing this. Like I hope it's the only way to do this isn't like from somebody who's well versed in the world of drug smuggling and criminal activity, you know, like who, you know, for me it was like I also had the corporate side, but I also had the, the other side. And so it was kind of beneficial, for both, but you couldn't go into this without being in that gray market. And that's why I really hope like things change, laws change, or some kind of acceptable standards to things where we can safely administer these, and where you don't have to be a fucking drug running ex-con, like maniac to be the person that has the balls to do this, because you don't have so much opposition to go against. So it's like, I really believe people talk shit about like, these people, which I know I'm part of that group too, but it's like, who else was gonna fucking do it? If somebody else was gonna do it, they would have,
Right,
and
exactly.
these are our founding fathers. Their fucking Mount Rushmore psychedelics is like not the most desirable people, but neither were our actual founding fathers of America. Those guys are a bunch of fucking dirtbags too, dude. So it's just about the balls and conviction, and opening it up to where, maybe healthier people can take the torch and run with it in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It's beautiful. And when, and you can also, you get the chance to say like, like, honey, back in my day, we had to do ayahuasca ceremonies illegally underground. Honey.
We had to go to Mexico and smuggle the medicine, and
back in our day.
now you can just go to any church,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just that's the change, and shit. I don't see this going anywhere. It works, so it's not going to go away. That's the thing. If it works, the cat's out of the bag, it works. And so now our government needs to like figure out how to responsibly handle that. And like, God bless the First Amendment. Fuck yeah, dude. It gives you so much protection, dude. And it
I
really
love
does.
our founding fathers so much.
Yeah.
They were so smart, weren't they?
Thank you.
How gangster of a move was that? They said we're gonna protect DMT, ayahuasca.
Yep. We're protecting all of it. And it's because like people, in the South, they're like, oh, I'm so scared to do it here because everybody's so religious. I'm like, that's the best fucking spot to do it, because what protects their religion protects yours. And these guys won't put rules on the books that are going to interfere with religion. So that those areas, like we do Utah's one of the, Texas is the safest place to do this. They actually have laws protecting ceremonies. And then Utah, we're so out in the open. We're doing it with a bunch of Mormons. Like that whole state, that's the most religious and state controlled by religion in the U.S. is Utah. And it's one of the greatest places to do ceremonies, and with the highest demand. And it's like,
wow.
Because where there's that religious freedom, it's for everybody. Yeah. Maybe a little harder for the Muslims, but it's, it's there for everybody. And so God bless these laws, that First Amendment, RFRA ruling, all that, like, and that's where, you don't need an attorney. And if there's any when you start doing this, if you have any questions, hit me up. I'll share any documents we have, all of that. You don't need to pay all those thousands of dollars, and don't fall for the members thing. People go, we'll do a private member club and you can do whatever you want. Yeah. That's what they told the fucking Hells Angels, dude. Like you still can't traffic meth. Like you can't go around breaking federal laws because you're a private member club. That might help out with some tax situations and stuff, but that's like a big fucking scam that a lot of these people, it's like, dude, you saved up $10,000 to do this. Now you're throwing it away for paperwork when you should be buying mats and fucking blankets and buckets for people to puke in and make a better experience, not giving it all to an attorney. And it's like, when you see attorneys and doctors getting in on shit, it's good, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. I filed the paperwork, and I am incorporated with my state as of a few weeks. As of a few weeks ago, I'm still I would love to. There's a lot of kind of like groundwork stuff that I'm still kind of laying in place here for some of this. So that probably is what I'll correspond with you on and stuff. Yeah. With some of that, like, some of the groundwork stuff that I'm doing and how that's going to look and how things kind of operate and stuff. But yeah, I'm filed with the state, incorporated. And like you said, did not cost me 10 grand. So that was nice. Yeah, it's actually really appalling after I went through the entire process. Like, wow, I can't believe someone was actually trying to charge me.
It's sickening, dude. It's sickening. Fuck these guys, dude.
Actually sickening to me, Courtney. I was like, because there is certain things within like law. Like, for instance, whenever I got drug trafficking charges. I dropped 10 grand on a lawyer.
Yeah, that's a good time to drop 10 grand on an
Yeah.
attorney. When you're charged with something, yeah, fuck yeah.
Yeah, it was a great use of that 10 grand. I was going to say,
and
but I'm
divorce,
sitting
dude. Criminal charges and divorce. Fuck yeah, get an attorney.
But this shit, I was like, man, okay.
Paperwork?
I was,
No, fuck no. But it's just people are so scared of it and they don't know where to start. And then they see these guys putting that kind of price tag on it. So you assume that the price tag is like the juice is worth the squeeze. Like they wouldn't be able to charge 10 grand if it wasn't worth 10 grand. It's certainly not worth 10 grand, you know, or 5 grand or 2 grand. Like, and you still have to click the button yourself. All they're going to do is walk you through it. And it's like, then you just go get your EIN. Oh, dude, and bank with Wells Fargo. Only bank with Wells Fargo. You can do everything online. You get the app. You don't need to walk into a Wells Fargo unless you need to extract cash. You can do international wire transfers on your phone. And Wells Fargo doesn't do the due diligence that other banks do. Don't do Chase. Don't do any. Just Wells Fargo. That's it. That's the official bank of plant medicine. Is Wells Fargo.
Nice. That was actually. I'm glad. That was gonna definitely be one of my follow-up questions. It's all.
Yeah, dude. Wells Fargo. Cut that. Don't put that in the podcast, dude. I worked for a different bank, and so I know about the nightly files and the due diligence they do. And Wells Fargo is notoriously it is like the bank of the criminal underworld.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they make it really convenient to do everything from your phone. Also, if you're collecting payments through a third-party payer, don't use Wix. Only do QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks Online lets you create invoices. Don't use Square. Square will take your money. Wix will take your money. PayPal, you've got to use either direct payment through Zelle into Wells Fargo, or you've got to use QuickBooks Online.
Gotcha.
That's I mean, there's so much robbery committed by these guys that because they're required to do third party. The KPI know your fuck, I totally forgot. No, it's they have to do due diligence on their clients, but it's a little bit different for QuickBooks and Wells Fargo. So
okay,
I
appreciate you putting me on that game because like with our business with the Amanita, Blue Lotus, Cavacana, we have a very. I mean, it's been a journey. We're in a very good place with our current payment processor and stuff like that now, our current merchant. But yeah, within the whole sort of like psychoactive gray market area, finding payment processors and merchant accounts and things like that can be like, for some people, that ends up being like a pretty big obstacle for them. It's just being able to get their money, you know?
Yeah, totally. Oh God, there's times I order shit online where I'm like, wait, what? I get emailed instructions about if you'd like to pay with Bitcoin, here, do this, or you can wire money directly, you know, for $25 wire transfer fee. And it's just, you know, it's a lot because of, you know, the third party payers. So yeah, we've had really positive experiences with those too, but we've probably been robbed of like around $7,000 from Wix and Square. Just nope, we don't have to give you your money back. Well, where did it go? Did you give it? Oh, you just kept it. Fucking right on. But yeah, so that's really it. And then like I can send you like our statement of faith, and you literally can just take it. I have all definitely don't include this. Have you talked to Greg Lake at all?
I've talked to him before. I haven't talked to him about this in particular. I actually used to work with the Sacred Synthesis for a little bit, and that was a couple of instances in which I talked to him. So we're somewhat familiar with each other.
You know Jenna and Ian, and
I'm familiar with all of them. Yeah,
and my friend Katie worked there.
Katie.
Oh, dude, Katie's my homegirl. She stayed at my house for like almost a year, and then went back.
Okay.
Yeah,
I used to have Zoom meetings with her. Like,
oh shit,
yeah.
And Greg was the first attorney that like we consulted, and he came to the first ceremony that we did as a church. He flew out and did it, and then this group from UCLA was doing a documentary, and on entheogenic churches, and it didn't go anywhere, and they interviewed us together. We did Greg and I did an interview, and then Greg's somebody that. He's so smart and I have a lot of respect for him, but he seems to be unraveling and not like really controlling his own demons. And, but he had an assistant, this dude, Mark Guckel, they had started it, and I think Hector was involved at that point, and they were trying to get entheogenic up and running, and they sent me all of their templates. And so, yeah, I can share Mark with the stuff that Mark sent for me that talks about the different sacraments and entheogens, but that's ultimately all they do is just copy and paste and put your information into that template. There's not, and then you have to edit it and get the edits back to them. I mean, it's really nothing, and it's an extreme amount of stuff. Like where Greg, I think is probably one of the most useful people in the United States is when it comes to the litigation stuff, and his understanding of RFRA and the First Amendment and the different case laws is phenomenal. Like if you get in trouble, Greg's a motherfucker to call to consult on that. But to set up a church, you don't need all of that stuff.
Yeah, he like actually seems to be like, there's probably a lot of people who like professionalize in it, and there's probably like few people who are genuinely interested. He seems like one of these people who's genuinely interested in like the law of it. Like his Patreon account, I'm subscribed to his Patreon, and he's like every like week he's like, all right, this section of this like, and
Greg is phenomenal and gives like really fucking cares about it. And and then with the Simon-Oxy Church, like, or Church of Sacred Synthesis, whatever it is now, like he's invested in it. I don't know any other entheogenic attorneys that have their own they're out there fucking, if you put the fucking rubber to the road, you believe in it, start your own church, attorney. Let's see how that works out, And Greg's out there, big dick energy, just shipping fucking shrooms all over the US and not in trouble for it, and so I have a lot of respect for Greg. But I would not have him do you wait 6 months for your fucking paperwork and get it back wrong.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's interesting that because small world. It's funny that you know them as well too. But is it interesting because I haven't gotten to I've wondered what's been going on with Greg, what has gone on with Greg personally, just because whenever the work I did do with them was at first he seemed to be heavily involved, and then quickly it was he just wasn't coming to any meetings, and there was always something going on and stuff like that. So yeah, I hope he's doing all right. But
yeah, I think he has some of his own addiction issues, and and goes off the rails at times with it.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's somebody I'm super rooting for, dude. His heart's in the right spot. He is one of the most intelligent people I've ever met in my life, and just so in this for the community, in this for not the community, that in this for the cause, really invested in it for the cause. So I hope he continues to pull through and get it figured out. But yeah, he was our first one, and then I have right now Charles Carrion, who's handling the case for the AYA, the Arizona Yahweh Assembly, and then a couple of different federal attorneys that we consult with. But Charles is the only one that I have on retainer because I want to make sure if something does happen, I have somebody to call. I'm not sitting there going, let me go try to find a local criminal defense attorney to help me out of this fucking tangled situation,
Yeah.
But, yeah, and then there's this attorney called this group of attorneys called the Plant Medicine People. Oh my god, bunch of dicks, dude. A friend of mine was offering hey, I'm gonna do this workshop on helping you incorporate. It was the one she had talked about having me do it, and I go, dude, I don't know how I feel about it. I really don't fucking have the energy right now. So she did it. She's like, I'm gonna do this plant medicine workshop. We're gonna do, practical safety, trauma, all the stuff, all the basic stuff you need. These assholes sent her a cease and desist and told her that she couldn't be offering legal or tax advice. They'd reported her to the California Bar Association. And then the California Bar Association contacted her, and then the California tax, whatever the fuck. And she's like, oh my God.
They're not in it for the collective. They're not in it for the team.
And it's like you're picking on like this chick out in California who's been running an entheogenic church for like 7 years, and so she actually won, like, because they had no grounds. They were just harassing her, because she was taking away clients from them, and then they would just left insane messages constantly on her social media about how she's not qualified and people need to go to them. It was just like every post turned into a commercial, for their services. And like I've gotten stuff in the mail from them, like just fear-based shit, like why I need to, get a retainer with them.
Okay.
So yeah, pretty wild. But yeah, dude, I'll send you a link to our ceremonies. If there's any that work out for you, just let me know and I'll shoot you over the info.